wake up at 9 or 10 a.m.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so this is good. This is actually a good thing.
Okay. Um,
What about you?
uh, I've had a pretty inconsistent schedule recently.
Yeah,
'Cause usually, so I'm in a place right now where I don't have to like wake up super early for anything.
yeah,
My job usually starts like around 4 or so.
yeah.
Um, so I just gotta get back into the habit of sleeping. I like ideally sleeping between 10 and 12. And then whenever my body decides to wake up, depending on what I did, then I
Yeah,
just kind of let that happen. And so I've,
that's a good way to live.
I mean, it feels good. I definitely like waking up, uh, I guess organically versus like having an alarm or something, because I
Yeah.
just feel good throughout the entire day. Just gonna take notes. So, um,
Okay, can you brief me though? Because I don't really know what's happening.
yeah. So I mean, this is it's nothing like crazy. It's honestly just like,
We're just talking.
yeah, we're literally just talking the way that I would normally, want to have a conversation with you.
Yeah,
And this is something that I just really enjoy doing and I've done for a while, but never
yeah,
acted on the idea of wanting to make this kind of stuff public. So
yeah.
I'd always have friends with conversation. I mean, I'd always have conversations with friends,
Conversations with friends.
and we're always
Hey,
like, "Oh, I wish
can you see that?
a conversation with friends."
It's the book I'm reading now.
Oh, that's funny. That's cool. How deep are you into that?
I love it. I mean, I think the best kinds of connections you make with people are through understanding how they live their lives and how, yeah, just like, and I mean that comes in many different forms.
Mm-hmm.
It can be physically or mentally or spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I get like I don't do it often because I know that if I dive in too deep, I'll get really exhausted
Mm-hmm.
the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And if like that's why I'm amazed at how you can do it so often because for me, right, it's like once I have this conversation, I'm good. Like I got my high and I'm like I don't want to exhaust myself too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, basically.
Okay.
I think listening is also always harder than speaking your mind. For me, that is.
Okay. Okay.
That's something I need to work on. I need to learn how to listen.
That's funny. Every time I talk to somebody, they fall on either side. Whether they're like, "Oh, I'm practicing listening," or I love listening, but I'm trying to learn how to speak more.
Yeah,
So I can totally understand with like the whole being exhausted thing. And
yeah.
I've just found
See
that.
that?
Go ahead.
See, I just did the
No, no,
thing
it's
that I
okay.
was not supposed to do.
It's okay. It's okay.
But like, I wanted to ask you, like, actually, like, how do you not burn yourself out with like constant deep level thinking and conversation?
Oh, this is interesting. Okay. No one's asked me that before, so
Yeah,
um, I'm just writing down. Okay. Music. So there's a few reasons. So first, I put myself to the test. Um, when I made a shift in what I was doing, when I felt like, oh, I think this is what I want to do, like for sure, because my patterns in my past have kind of pointed in that direction. I just never um, took it seriously because it wasn't practical. So I never thought about it. Whereas at the time, like dance and the idea of marketing and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, that's practical, and I like it. It's just fun. But then I was like, no, I always drop everything for a conversation. So if I'm just kind of going about my day and you literally called me, regardless of what I was doing, like I'm so committed to that call, and it's finished when it's finished, right? So that's just the person I've always been, and without I guess really saying it or realizing it, and then I was like, oh, like yeah, that's who I am, I guess. And then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna test that and just start when I have conversations with my friends. I want to let them know that they can for sure reach out whenever, and like I really want them to understand that. And then I think in April, so I had this realization in February, then in April I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start a podcast. So this is technically a live stream. I started a podcast first, and I like booked 5 people in a row, and I think each session was like an hour 15 or something like that. And and there was breaks in between. I want to make sure you're still there because you're frozen on my screen. Oh, I don't know. Your screen is black. I totally forgot about
Hi.
Twitch. Hi.
Yo, the internet died.
What?
Okay, wait, is this okay? Is this connection okay? Because I'm just connecting to somebody else's
Oh,
Wi-Fi.
so. Yeah. I mean, I can hear you and stuff. You, yeah.
Okay, good. I think it's more reliable than my own one.
Okay. Um,
Yeah,
so
you're saying in April?
oh yeah, so in April I started. I was like, I'm gonna do a podcast. I'm just gonna figure it out, and we're gonna do it. And I booked 5 people for the same day, and it went from like I think maybe 9 or 10 a.m. to like 5 or 6, with like 15-minute breaks between each person. So then after it was done, I was like, oh my, like it's done. Like, and it didn't feel like it was that long. So I was like, oh, I
Mm.
think I enjoy this. I was like, that's crazy that I could still, keep going and whatnot. Um, then I just further kept exploring that, and I was also, or I've been in a really good, emotionally balanced and mental state. I can get deeper into that later. So all that kind of stuff kind of worked out for me, and I feel really good about everything. But I'd say
Mm-hmm.
that what keeps me from burning out is I feel extremely connected to what I should be doing. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not second guessing that at all. Whereas we've all second guessed stuff before. So for me
Yeah.
to not have that feeling anymore is amazing. And then just being way more conscious of where my health is at now. And even with like the whole sleep thing and the days where like there was a time period where I was getting amazing sleep, and then just one day I didn't, and I was also working, and I was pushing myself past what I understood was like it's not detrimental because we all kind of like overwork ourselves, but I hadn't done that in so long. And so when I was just working past what I felt was comfortable for me internally, then I got sick and all this stuff, and I was like, yeah, so now my brain feels like this and I'm like this, and I don't really have the
Mm-hmm.
stamina or the desire to even take in information like this at all. So it's like, no,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really in the mood to have those conversations. So when I do my best to, get the sleep and whatever I can put in my body and whatever, the stamina is longer. And that's just like, I feel like that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, so just taking care of myself physically helps. And then
Nice.
being sure of who I am, what I'm doing internally, plays a huge part.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that was
No,
enough.
I think that I can relate to some of that, like,
Okay.
like not second guessing your purpose
Mm-hmm.
this life.
Mm-hmm.
And people are always like, don't you get tired of writing songs every day? And I'm kind of like, no, like I literally shit songs. Like that's fun, like like that's like I don't know. Like when people are like, "Don't isn't it a lot of work?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's work, but it's not. There's work you enjoy,
Yeah.
and it's different. Like it's still exhausting, and it's still um you still have to get paid for it
Yeah.
to some extent.
Hmm.
But at the same time, like, it's what I've always wanted to do, or at least I'm realizing now what I do want to do for a long time.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay.
Why?
Um, I mean, I was gonna get into all that stuff and just ask you, everything from, well, that question. I mean, I totally understand when you enjoy something and it doesn't feel like work, but you can get tired. So
Yeah.
what's your entire like music journey been like? That's super broad. And so I'll say like,
Wait, is this live?
yeah, but it's okay. It's kind of like I didn't like go crazy like being like, hey,
Okay.
only because like I've had a lot of stuff going on my end.
No, that's totally fine. Okay. Um, music journey. Like the from a young age, I've always loved to sing. I mean, that's like a thing that I like to do,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't good at it. And like I'm not being like one of those annoying people that are like, oh, I wasn't good at it. I was really just not good. And the people around me like were really encouraging though. Um,
Mm.
I joined choir and all that. And then when I was 17, that was when I had my first relationship with someone. And when that ended was when I wrote my second song.
Mm.
The first song I wrote when I was like 13.
Okay.
And that was just like for fun. It was called Venus, the Planet of Love. And
Okay.
if you've heard it, you've heard it. If you haven't, then you probably won't. um, but when I was 17, I wrote this song called Two. And now, in retrospect, like, it's not the best song written, but
Mm-hmm.
it was the song that I could write back then, right? So
Mm.
I shouldn't shit on myself too much. Um, and then I moved to Singapore. So I was born and raised in Hong Kong
Mm-hmm.
for 18 years. And then I moved to Singapore when I was 18. And that was where I served as a police officer for 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, um, but actually, I got into, after my 5, 6 months of training, I was put into the police band as my vocation,
Mm-hmm.
as their vocalist. So I ended up getting to do that for a year and a half. And that was
Wow.
also part of the whole like everything's aligning for me.
Okay.
Yeah. And then while I was in Singapore, I joined this music program, this mentorship program where you get a mentor, or in my case, I got two,
Mm-hmm.
and they guide you through the music industry within Singapore.
Okay.
So I
Wow.
did that, and that really helped uh, getting my foot into the door.
Mm-hmm.
And that was also when I just started writing like a lot of songs, maybe a song a day or a song every 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Wow. So,
Honestly, a lot of the success that I've had with my music
mm-hmm.
is the result of a lot of good people wanting to help me.
Mm.
Like, you hear from a lot of art industry people or music people
Mm-hmm.
that, it's like blood, sweat, and tears, and they suffer a lot for their art to get to where they are.
Yeah.
Um, Honestly, for me, it wasn't really like that.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes I'm a bit embarrassed by that because you
Uh,
want to say that you suffered a
mm,
lot,
mm-hmm,
and maybe it's just my perspective on things or a certain level of optimism involved, but
mm-hmm. I see, I see.
I feel like a lot of the good things that happened with my music kind of landed in my lap,
Mm,
and I lucked out. I don't know, like right place, right time, and
mm,
these people wanting to watch me succeed, helping me out.
I see. That is different. Well, not, yeah, yeah, different from what I've heard.
And obviously, like when I tell people about this, like, they say, like, no, but I've watched you work hard and you work hard and stuff. And I think to some extent it's true, but I
Mm-hmm,
also, I really do believe, like, with the art industry and making it your rice bowl, it's a lot of it is actually dictated by something out of your control.
mm-hmm,
Like, you can increase the possibility or chance of an opportunity coming,
mm-hmm.
but at, it's always about whether when an opportunity comes, if you're prepared for it, or you just missed the opportunity and you just have to move on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. And now, like after my 2-3 years in Singapore, after I released my first album, I moved to Boston. Now I'm at Berkeley College of Music, majoring in songwriting, and uh, it's been great for me here. Like meeting like-minded people who are really good at what they do,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like in a very specific way. There are so many things you don't have to explain to each other. Like,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the context, though the details are different, are very similar. Like, you always loved music, you want to do music forever. Um, like, there's just so many things that are similar that you don't have to explain
Mm-hmm.
who you are to a lot of people. You
Mm-hmm.
just exist in the form that you come in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and then I released 2 EPs last year.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, one of them was about kind of like the different facets of the human mind and things like anxiety and insecurity, imperfections, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second EP was a love EP.
Mm-hmm.
That was because I met somebody last year and I fell in love.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then I was like, fuck it, let me release one more EP. And I did. So,
Oh shit. That's crazy.
yeah.
Okay. Let's see. So that's really dope. Um, I'll just. Okay, so. I have questions in here internally. I always try to navigate through my internal clock.
Nice.
Or not clock, but. So. So why Berkeley?
um, I came here when I was 16 for a 5-week program.
Okay.
And that's where I met um, like a couple friends that I've stayed connected with
Mm-hmm.
and I've really bonded with. And like that was like the first insight on like what doing music every day would kind of feel like.
Mm. Mm.
And I really loved it. It's probably one of my best summers ever.
Mm.
Um, so after I finished my service, um, I took a year, like a gap year,
Mm.
to release my album and do
Mm.
like things that I've always wanted to do. That's also where I went to yoga teacher training school,
Okay.
and did that
Wait, did you say
and taught a little bit.
you say yoga?
Yeah,
Okay, just making sure. That's cool.
yeah. So I did YTD, and then I decided like, okay, I'm gonna apply to one music school, and that's Berkeley. And if I don't get in, I'm not going to school,
Okay.
and I'm just going to wing it and just do the music thing like anyway, regardless, you know.
Yeah.
But then I got in, and then I guess the reason why I stay and why I choose to come back every semester is because like Berkeley is honestly it's about the people and the community.
Mm.
Like yeah, it's cool that they have recording studios and facilities and stuff, but like at the end of the day, you know, if you're surrounded by people that you don't enjoy, you're gonna hate the mood, you
Mm.
know. So like I met a lot of people that I just feel really connected to. Um, and yeah, I think like creating art with somebody is always so like fulfilling,
Mm.
like in the heart, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like co-writing and collaborating and just like even if you're not writing, just like sharing your energy with each other and like getting inspired off that. Like there's literally at least 5 different shows happening at Berkeley every day,
Yeah.
and like there's bound to be a couple that you enjoy and you go and watch them and then you leave and you're like, wow, like I'm so inspired, I want to go home and write like 12 songs, you know.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it is like every week for me. um, but you also hear like from the people around you like how much they hate Berkeley.
Uh.
And like at first I kind of didn't understand it because I was like, what do you mean, like there's nothing to hate, you know.
Yeah.
I mean that's obviously an ignorant like statement to make, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like obviously it's expensive and things like that, but I honestly believe like any experience that you go through, like a lot of it has to do with how you handle that experience, right? Like if you
Mm-hmm.
go into anything with a negative mindset, chances are you're probably gonna not enjoy yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And if for example, if you dread going to class every day or every time you have class, you're not going to start the class on a good note, you know.
Mm.
Like at the end of the day, you're paying like what, 100 US dollars or 150 US dollars per class. Like that's if you do the math, right? And
Mm.
if you skip your class because you want to, like, no shade on people who get high all the time, but like
Yeah.
if you're skipping the class just to go smoke up and like then what are you doing at the school, you know? Or what are you doing at school? Like if you're the best producer ever, then go do that, you know? Like don't waste your time here because you're not just wasting your time, you're wasting your money. And I don't know. I feel like when you're at this school though, like you can't really say that to people because
Mm.
people take it personally when
Yeah.
it's not really. It's kind of just like, yo, like I lead my life this way and you lead your life that way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to judge you if you're always late to class, but if you're complaining about it, then
Yeah.
that's different, you know? Like
Mm-hmm.
if you're complaining that you have a 9 a.m., it's like, okay, first of all, you made your own schedule. Like I have four 9 a.m.s this time, so like I'm probably gonna complain a little bit, but at the same
Okay.
time, like you chose that slot, you know, you chose that teacher,
Mm-hmm.
so suck it up and go to class, you know? Yeah.
I see. I mean, yeah. I don't. a lot of people choose morning classes, and I always hear how people don't go, and I just don't. I don't know.
Yeah. Like, okay, I get it if you need like a mental rest day or you're sick or whatever, or you have something more important to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just a little bit tired or you're not feeling it, like, no, like go out and go to the class and then take your break after, you know?
Mm-hmm. Um, so, would you say that? Well, I mean, I just feel like some people are just more connected and committed to what they want and understand why they're at a place like Berkeley, while some others may not even know why. And I mean, I hear
True.
like some things here and there from Casey, so like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, what I would say to that is if I came to Berkeley right out of high school,
mm-hmm,
instead of going through the police training and going through yoga teacher school,
mm-hmm,
and releasing my own music first, like, my experience would be very, very different.
yeah,
It could be better, I don't know, but it also could be worse. And when I came to Berkeley, I already knew what I wanted to do. Like,
mm,
I had a vision. I know who I am. I knew my identity as a person.
yeah,
Um, and when I came to the school, right, like I'm entering with a lot of kids who just came out of high school. You know, they're like 17, 18. Not to discount the fact that they have their own knowledge and experience, but there are some things that you don't get to learn in high school.
yes,
And they come here with the idea, you know, when you ask them, like, why are you at Berkeley? They're like, I like to play the drums. And it's like, okay, so, like, why? You know, like, what
yeah,
does that mean for you? And they're
mm-hmm,
like, I don't know, like, I just feel it in my bones. And it's like, dude, that's literally all of us at the school, right? Like, if
yeah,
your answer is I feel it in my bones, then you haven't really thought about it, you
mm,
know?
mm-hmm,
And a lot of people come here with the idea like, you know, once I go to Berkeley, I'm gonna know what I want to do. Or
mm,
if I come to Berkeley, I'm gonna get a job. Or if I come to Berkeley, I'll become the next Charlie Puth or the
mm,
next Imagine Dragons. Like, you know, like that's not what's gonna happen for you, unfortunately, because all of these people built their own career. You know,
mm,
like Berkeley is a tool for you, yes, but it's not a pathway for you to follow. And a lot of people that I know who graduated from Berkeley still don't know what they want to do
yeah,
because they haven't lived life outside of an institution. Like,
yeah,
you have to experience being on your own and being independent, learning to live by yourself, like things like this before you can really say, I know who I am.
mm,
You know, and I think it's perfectly fine if you're using Berkeley as a tool to help you get to that place, but you can't wait to be spoon fed that knowledge. Like you
mm,
have to go out and meet people, you know, like yeah, I'm in music school, but if I enjoy bowling, like go join a bowling club and meet people, you know, like that's how you meet people out of circumstance.
yeah, yeah,
And
I like
I
that.
don't know if you've heard of like this concept of like circumstantial friendship. Like a lot of the people that you meet this life or the friends that you make are through circumstance. You know, like I went to this middle school, so these are the people that I hung out with, and I went to high school, and in biology class, you know, these two people were the ones that I liked their jokes.
Yeah,
But if you know, if you really think about it, like if you met them outside of school, would you guys connect the way you do now? You know,
mm,
because a lot of your friendships are actually built out of desperation and like it's the harsh truth. Like you
No, no,
go
no,
to a
yeah,
new
yeah.
place, you go to a new school, you're the new guy, you go to Berkeley, the first thing your body does is it goes into survival mode, which is build yourself a community,
Mm.
and you end up just reaching out to whoever needs you as well. It's like a mutual parasite to each other, and you you end up making connections with people that you normally or innately wouldn't. You know, it's like, oh, these people live right next to me and they like to play the guitar too, so let's talk.
Yeah.
And I think like that's totally fine, but the friends that I made in Singapore when I moved there and I lived alone, the first 3 months I had no friends. Like actually I didn't know anybody. And that was because my whole life my friends came through my survival mechanism, which is you have to go just connect with anybody.
Mm.
Um, but when I started to go to local music shows and you know I went to this yoga studio and started taking classes from this person, like that's when I started building connections outside of circumstance. That's me putting myself in situations where I normally wouldn't
Mhm.
and meeting people and holding on to those relationships even after I've moved. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And that's why, you know, like my friends from high school, like I only really stay connected with two or three. And back in high school, my birthday parties, I have a twin sister. Our birthday parties, we would have 80 people. Like, that's like normal, you know?
Yeah. That's crazy.
And then suddenly, like, a few years later, you realize, like, out of the 80 people, you only really would have became friends with two or three. And
Mm.
that's totally fine, right? Because relationships are all about building deeper ones and not more. Like, you're not trying to make more connections, you're trying to make deeper connections.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I don't know, like when I came to Berkeley because I knew what I wanted, like it was so easy to avoid the drama and like build connections with people who like for me to or at least in my perspective are really cool people.
Mm.
You know, like that's also another privilege of turning 18 or becoming an adult is you get to choose who you want to surround yourself with.
Mm.
You don't have to waste your time on people that bring you down or on people who are always negative. Like I know what it was like because I used to be like that, you know. In high school, like I loved being negative and being negative with my friends. And yeah, it's one way to connect with people, but it's not for me it's not the optimal way.
Mm.
Um so when I came here I was like, I like you, let's hang out. And then you know, in my head, I'm like, I don't really like this person. I'm just not gonna call them, and like that's totally fine. You
Mm.
know,
Mm.
it's like no personal thing. It's not personal, and it's like no hard feelings. But like to me, you and I don't really gel in terms of our aura and our energy. So I'll see you in class, and that's okay too. You know.
Mm.
So yeah, like every semester, I'm meeting new people and I'm making new friends, and that's like such a cool thing to have because like these days people don't usually make friends that often.
Mm.
You know, you stay in your comfort bubble and you are content with that.
Mm.
But like it's such a unique experience making friends with somebody new and connecting with somebody new and connecting with somebody who has a completely different upbringing. You know, like
Mhm.
that's that in itself is a privilege because you're learning things that you wouldn't normally learn. And that is the result of yourself because you're putting yourself in these situations
Mm.
so you can learn, you know? And
Mhm.
like that's also what makes me excited to be at Berkeley
Mm.
because I don't know who I'm gonna meet, you know, and yeah, I don't know. I think it's maybe I'm rambling about the question, but yeah, that's basically it.
No, no, it's cool. It's cool. That was good. And I liked how you talked about circumstantial friendship, um,
Yeah,
because it's a real thing. And I also think about like circumstantial relationships in
yeah,
that way a lot too. When es- especially, and then there's those that like I don't know, just like I guess when they don't see it that way, or like they put an overemphasis on like this person is the one. I'm like, is it because you guys went to the same place and da 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 versus investing in yourself and like development and opening yourself up to the world and trying to connect with different people so that you can really have more of a feel. Like
yeah,
obviously that's uncomfortable, but I just feel like that doesn't happen enough. And
yeah.
then those relationships don't really. I mean, relationships in general, like you can never call it, but usually those aren't. Um, they don't really evolve into much. And this is
No,
just as from what I'm seeing with relationships that happen that way versus when it's like finding someone through like an accident or adventures and stuff because
exactly.
of the intent of like what you're doing in your life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like going back to going to the yoga studio and trying yoga out for the first time. Like
Mm.
in, let me see, in 3 weeks, I'm gonna be the MC of my teacher's wedding. Like that's crazy because a couple
That's
years
insane.
ago I didn't know this person,
Uh huh.
and now I'm gonna fly from Boston to Singapore to attend her wedding, and like that's like that wouldn't happen if I just decided to just stay at home and chill with the friends that I already had.
Mm.
Yeah,
Okay, so does that desire? I mean, we've kind of touched on it a little bit. Does that desire stem like to meet people and kind of be in different zones and stuff? Does that come from when you said it was like a privilege and like about learning other people's stories, or is it like that mixed with like a few other things?
I think it's that,
Mm-hmm.
and also being grateful for the things that I've learned from these people
Mm.
and them sharing one of the most precious commodities that we have, which is time and energy,
Mm.
and like them giving me that, and like whenever I've truly enjoyed my time with someone, I'll always say like thank you for your time and energy because like you gave me that, and
Mm.
hopefully I gave you back.
Yeah.
So you're not too tired, but like any kind of connection is some form of exchange, and I'm just appreciating that exchange. And um, like how, I mean, how much do you know about like auras? That
Um, I don't know about that stuff in depth. It's more of just like we kind of say it, like oh, like they have a nice aura, or I've met people who can see colors,
Yeah.
or just have a strong sense of it. Yeah.
Okay, so when you meet someone with a negative aura,
Mm-hmm.
you your your body, your your natural instinct, like it actually does take a step back when you are talking to them.
Mm.
Like your body does things to prevent that from happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'll cross your arms or whatever.
I see.
You'll try to cut a conversation short or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because like people with negative auras, how they get energy is by taking energy from the people around them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that people with a negative aura are bad people. because that's not necessarily the case.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a negative aura because of a multitude of reasons,
Mm-hmm.
including like child abuse, that and like sexual assault victims. Like people like that can also have negative auras.
Yeah.
Um, but basically, like I'm sure you've met people where they're really nice people and they're nice to you and stuff, and they go like, hey, what's up? And then like you're not even busy, but you're kind of like, hey, like it was nice bumping into you. Like I'll see you around, man. Okay, bye. And then you're kind of like, damn, like they're actually nice to me, but for whatever reason, I don't really want to continue that. Is because your body's prior experiences with this person has made you exhausted, and
Mm.
it knows that this interaction will take a lot of energy.
Mm.
Um, and that's why when you meet somebody with a positive aura or an aura that has a lot of energy,
Mm.
your exchange is mutual. So you don't feel tired after talking for hours because you're bouncing energy off each other and it's not a one-way street, right? And that's also why like the whole finding balance between talking and listening is so important
Mm.
because you need to be giving each other things. And it doesn't have to be like through speech, right? It could be body language or just showing somebody that you're listening. Um, but yeah, like when I this like urge to meet new people is because I want to meet people who I can learn from and hopefully like maybe they can learn from me in whatever way. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the beauties of being an intellectual species, right? Like we're supposed to be learning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you're only gonna learn so much by staying in your own ecosystem,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have to introduce new species and see how that affects your ecosystem, or else you're not gonna grow and you're not gonna evolve. Um, so yeah, like the negative people, like they're not. Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
it's been a while since somebody who has a negative aura has been around because
Mm.
like yeah, you know what, you can also do the nice, but a lot of the time they don't want to be helped
Yeah.
or or the kind of lesson that they have to learn has to be learnt by themselves.
Yeah.
And so you can only do so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if somebody is constantly negative cleaning, you can give advice and you can try and help them out. But there comes to a point where you're like, right now, honestly, what you're doing is kind of selfish to me,
Mm.
and you are taking my energy. And I'm trying to be a friend, but you don't want to help. So I guess for now, what you need is to help yourself,
Yeah.
or you need to learn how to want to be helped. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
or else you're
Mm.
not going to grow. So the moment my body or my mind senses somebody who's like a little bit like, they might be a nice person, but
Yeah.
not for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, dodge the bullet. Like, we don't have to be best friends. We can write a song together and view it as work,
Yeah.
but we're not gonna hang out after this session, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, it's 5 o'clock. I guess we'll finish another day. Like, I have things to do now. See you later. Bye.
Is that weird
Yeah.
for you, or like navigating it,
Navigating what
like
specifically?
like that example of like
Um,
it's cool to do work, but like I'm not trying to take it to another level or anything like that.
honestly, that interaction is actually usually quite natural. Like,
Okay.
there are people that you just vibe with, but
Mm.
you know you shouldn't write together.
Okay.
Um,
Oh.
and then there are people that are really good at what they do, like they're really good songwriters,
Yeah.
and you view this session objectively. You go, we are here to write this song to pitch to this artist.
Mm.
So we're here to, you know, it's not personal. Like while we're writing, don't take anything personally. Like, hey, I like that melody, let's try something else though. Or like, hey, I like that concept, but I think that's for another song. You know, like you have to not see it as each other attacking one another. So
Okay.
that translates also into like, hey, let's do the session from 7 to 9. And
Mm.
if you vibe and you get along, you're going to continue. You're
Mm.
going to be like, you know what, let's finish this song. Let's keep going. Or in more rare cases, you finish it earlier and you just hang out.
Mm.
But, you know, the moment it hits 9, you can tell when people are like, okay, I gotta go. When you say, like, oh, I actually have some work to do. But then I actually end up just watching June the Virgin on Netflix. Um, but, you know, like, you can tell. And, like, it's not that awkward. Also, people in the songwriting industry or people who've co-written before understand that dynamic, right?
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
and that's why you kind of do have to set your intentions for the session, right? Like, hey, Michelle, like, let's write this Saturday versus, hey, Michelle, let's go and watch a movie this Saturday. Like, it's, you both go into it with the idea, hey, you and I are really good friends, but we're also here to do work. We're here to finish the song.
Mm.
And sometimes you don't finish the song, and sometimes the song sounds like shit. And
Yeah.
you both acknowledge we're both good writers, but maybe our ideas together are not the best, and that's totally fine too.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'm sure you've choreographed with people before, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure you've choreographed with someone that you just like your ideas don't really go well together, or no.
No, I mean, it's definitely like when it's easier to work with someone, and
Yeah,
then the
true.
the result you don't have like full control over, and we have different viewpoints and how to choose what or what parts of the song and agreeing on certain things. So,
Yeah,
um, and it's usually just done with friends, that you vibe with. I've never worked with someone that is just dope. It's usually,
right.
yeah. So that's that. So when you had talked about like that, I was like, oh, that's interesting because um, I'm just fortunate too that like, but I work with people that I enjoy
Yeah,
all the time, or just being able to have conversations with just like musicians and stuff who like beyond their talent, I just really enjoy them as people. I don't think I've rocked with a musician on any level that I just didn't like, or anything like that.
okay.
Like I think you're dope. I think Casey's dope. I think Santi and any musician that I've
Yeah,
come across who just have like good hearts. I'm like, I like you guys. You're cool.
yeah. But yeah, I think it's different when you start viewing your as work as well, right?
Yeah.
Because you also have to remind yourself, like, I'm going to with people that I don't like. And
Mm.
for me, like, going into police training was that, like,
Uh.
having to take orders from somebody that you don't like and just sucking it up and doing it and smiling. Like,
Yeah.
that's something that I've just learned to do, and that's probably why I don't mind
Uh.
working with people I don't usually like because I'm like, this is a job. This
Mm.
is the blood, sweat, and tears that I have to go through.
Yeah.
Um,
I see.
Also, some people are just really shitty writers. Like, no shade, but all
Yeah.
shade. Like, you're also not. You're probably just not supposed to write songs,
Yeah.
and that's fine too because there are actually different roles in the songwriting session.
Mm.
Like, let's say you have 4 songwriters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have the generator, and this is the person who spews out ideas constantly, no filter.
Mm.
You have the editor, who is the person who takes down all the ideas. You actually write down on like a Google Doc,
Mm-hmm.
and they refine what you've said into things. You have the viber, which is the person who creates the good vibes, like lighting and the temperature, and hey, do you guys want to get something to eat? Like I can order food. Or, you have this someone to make sure everybody is in the place.
Yeah.
And then the last one is the gel, which is the person who keeps everybody together, right? Because sometimes the editor and the generator can butt heads because it's like, hey, why'd you cut that out? Or
I see.
the editor might be like, oh, I don't really like that idea. Or Mel has to be the one to go like, okay, why don't we put everything down and then, like the swing vote, basically, the person who goes like, let's do this instead or whatever.
Mm.
So sometimes being a shitty writer can still get you into the songwriting session, get you royalty because you're a really good person to be around. Like that's also another thing.
Is that like a DJ Khaled type of thing?
I don't know. I don't know how DJ cut. There are definitely people whose roles, like
Mm.
people invite them to sessions, like
Uh,
because they're a good energy to be around. Because they're the ones who's gonna be like, yo, like let's all take a break now, And then everyone's like, okay, like let's take a break, you know?
never knew that. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Wow. Um, when did you pick up an instrument?
Um, voice, obviously, just singing from a young age.
Yep.
Uh, Guitar, I picked up when I was 14 or 15,
Mm.
and I was taught by a teacher for a year, and then I just self-taught from there. And then I actually learned drums when I was 10 to 12.
Mm.
I suck at drums now, but that's a fun fact. And then keyboard, like every Chinese kid ever, we had to learn the keyboard. We had to learn the piano when we were. For me, it was 2 years old.
Yeah. Oh shit.
Like you see 2-year-olds in America, and like, yo, I wish that was my childhood because I had to fucking play the piano.
Yeah.
But I quit when I was 10 to learn the drums,
Mm.
and then I picked it up again, like when I was in the police. Like
Mm.
just started playing again, and then at Berkeley, I'm playing a lot. Yeah.
Okay. So with the music that you make today and like your journey with all that, when did you start? So do you do like the entire thing from start to finish? And I've asked friends, like I've never done the research myself, where like really trying to understand the different layers and levels from production to mixing and mastering, like I all that stuff. Yeah, I don't know.
99% of the songs, 95% of the songs that I've released,
Mm-hmm.
I've written by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Lyrics, melody, the music.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I outsource my production. Like I get a producer to produce my work, and I get a mixing engineer and a mastering engineer to do that because, like, for a while, I kind of felt like, like, damn, it sucks that I can't do all these things because there are all these new artists that can do everything, right?
Okay, okay.
And that you get this kind of pressure to keep up and to be able to do everything. But at the same time, like, I know that I'm good at what I do,
Mm-hmm.
and that is my strength, you know. And when I'm in a room, I shouldn't feel intimidated or less because I
Mm,
can't do production or whatever, because chances are these people aren't as good at something else, you know?
yeah.
Like my production, the two EPs and the one album were done by my drummer,
Yeah.
who is the husband of the yoga teacher that I am going to the wedding to. I know it's full circle, dude. He's my
Oh my god.
producer. I know. Dude, it's a crazy world. But basically, he's really good at what he does. He also does a lot of the arrangements.
Mm,
Um, if you do you know what arranging is?
I do not.
Okay, so after you write the song, you know, usually it's written on piano and just vocals or whatever.
Okay.
The arranger is the person who writes out parts for the other instrument or
Okay.
decides, for example, where does the bass come in, where does the drums come in, what do the strings do? Are they playing one note or are they doing solo? Like the
Okay.
arranger is the person who's deciding essentially the dynamics and the storyline of the song
Okay.
in terms of texture and all of that flavor.
Oh
Because the
yeah.
flesh and bones of the song,
Yeah.
okay, the bones of the song is the songwriting part.
Okay.
The flesh is the arranging. Flesh is like choosing, do we want to record this song as a live one take thing, or
Yeah.
do we want to bring in a whole orchestra and do this whole thing, you know? So
Mm,
that's what the arranger does.
okay. Wow. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. You can also obviously double up on roles, like
Yeah.
Casey's dad, who does everything. Like, I'm like, what the hell? So yeah,
Oh my god. That's awesome. Um, I think. Hmm. Oh, okay, okay. I'm like trying to, I guess, try and stay in the music topic until I feel like there's nothing left and then kind of move.
yeah,
And maybe this feels like an interview, but you can ask me anything at any time if anything comes to mind. Uh,
for sure, for sure.
I'm just curious, so whenever I get into these things, like I'm, I'm always trying to get to like the person's story and their different experiences in different areas.
Yeah.
Um, shoot, so I was gonna ask. Oh, okay, okay. The marketing aspect, because that's like a huge portion.
Oh yeah.
So being in, so okay, so I'm also someone that people come to, and I have a marketing, like I like it and I think it's cool and I understand that it's necessary. But whenever people come to me, I'm like, you really have to like decide what you want for yourself truly, and there are different ways to get there, because some people don't really focus heavily on marketing. They kind of just focus on the skill set, and the word of mouth is really good because the quality of their work is like so high that it gets passed around faster, but then also or they get picked up, and
Yeah.
they get seen by certain people and whatever, and they
Yeah.
kind of put them on. And we have friends in the dance world that were just like purely skill based, like the
Yeah.
marketing wasn't really anything, it was just the talent and the personality. I was like, you could do that, and or you could do like the whole venture of understanding branding and the different networks
And
and all
getting
those
yourself
aspects.
out there.
So
Yeah.
like what's that been like for you, or like, yeah, or how much time do you spend doing that, if at all?
I think that, well, first of all, I'm an indie artist, meaning I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
So that means marketing and all that is kind of decided by me. Like
Yeah.
how much I get heard is kind of decided by me.
Yeah.
And when I first started, it was by word of mouth, and it was by people showing up to watch another person,
Ah.
and then I just so happen to be the next act, and then they stay and whatever. And then slowly building a social media following and
Mm.
people, you know. But actually, from like a young age, I've actually had a very good business mindset
Mm.
to things. Like
Okay.
I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses and I know how to highlight my strengths. Like I know one of my strengths is like charm and like
Mm.
being able to get people to like me and like
Mm-hmm.
connect with me. And I have to credit a lot of my success to knowing how to, like, in a non-negative way, charm people.
Yeah, yeah, no, I
You
understand.
know.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Um, and then as that went on, and I started realizing like all of these other tools that you can use, like you know, promotions and stuff. Like a lot of people have very negative views on sponsoring your posts or promoting your posts.
Mm.
But it's also like, well, it's a tool for you to get heard. And just like how you've invested money in creating your music, you also have to invest money in getting your music heard.
Yeah.
Because your art does not exist if there's no audience,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And you've already spent so much money on recording and getting this album ready. Why would you skimp out on the half that is going to get you heard, you know?
Yeah.
You have this amazing bomb ass track, but no one's gonna hear it because you just put it on SoundCloud. It's like, and then you just, put it on your Insta story, like, go check out my single on SoundCloud. It's like, okay, but there are ways to get people excited for your work, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, also a whole other thing about that's so important, like
Mm-hmm.
sticking to your brand and building your following off your brand is so important to understand because let's say your brand is all about streetwear and like urban and like, um, like taking selfies where you're kind of like it's blurry and like oh, whatever, fuck life, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
You're going to get like-minded people to follow you. You're going to get people who want that content, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you suddenly post things that are out of your brand, people aren't going to enjoy it. It can be like a risk you take,
Yeah.
but most of the time people are like, why are you suddenly posting your wedding photos on your, like, this is not what I'm here to see. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like for example, my brand, or like at least what I think I'm portraying,
Mm-hmm.
is all about like being human and honesty and keeping it real and like breaking down the facade of like what it's like to be an artist or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I post videos with my friends and I kind of give them a little bit of an insight on my daily life and
Mm.
what it's like to be at Berkeley. Like if I suddenly started posting things of like me fucking like doing things like this on the street and like dabbing or whatever, people are gonna be like, "What the fuck are you doing?" You know, like you can ease that into your brand and
Yeah.
slowly make it your brand, but
Of course.
you have to stay true to what your consumers came here for.
Mm.
You know, that's also a big reason why like every time people are like, "Why don't you join these singing competitions?" or
Uh.
"Why don't you make more covers and stuff?" It's like, yeah, that's a really great shortcut to to fame and
Yeah.
getting heard.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I would be getting heard for the wrong reason. Like, I don't want to get famous singing other people's songs, you know? I
Mm.
want to be known for my own music, and I want to be known for lyrics that I've written, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
And another thing with singing competitions is it saturates your career so quickly. Like your peak is the year that you joined The Voice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
And then after that, it's like, oh yeah, you were the fourth on season 7 2 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want to be known as that. You know, you want to be the guy who wrote, I don't know, fucking Shape of You. Like, you
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
be known as the, you know, like if I say like, oh, do you know the song? Uh, fuck, there's so many big songs. I think you get my point. Like, if I named any Beyonce, oh yeah, Beyonce sang it, you know.
Yeah.
But I want to be known as an artist and not as, like, no offense to anyone who's joined a singing competition, as
Yeah.
a cover artist. Like,
Yeah.
that's not what I am here to do.
Mhm.
And of course, there are people who are meant to do that, right? Like, they have the most amazing voices, and their strengths lie in entertainment and performance
Mhm.
versus creating and doing that. But, like, that's not what I'm here to do, you know?
Mm.
Uh, and I have a couple of friends who've done that, and they didn't enjoy their experience on the shows because they were told what to wear, they were told which songs to sing. Like, you don't even get to choose the songs you sing, you know? Like, it's like half.
Damn.
Um, it's like, here are 3 songs that you can sing, and like, wait, like, why are all these rock songs? And it's like, oh, because rock, like, persona on this season, and you're that persona, so, you know, and then you end up getting like 100 who want you to sing rock, and you're like, well, I guess I dug myself into this hole, and because my career is built off this, I'm gonna continue doing rock when that's
Uh.
not your calling,
Yeah.
you know. Um, like, I have this friend who joined the singing competition in China,
Mhm.
and he got really, really famous, but singing Chinese songs. And he writes his own music and he writes his own English music.
Mhm.
But every time he gets invited to do a show, the organizers go, "Oh, can you sing Chinese songs? Can you sing cover songs?" And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, you're getting all these gigs, but you're not happy.
Yeah.
So what's the point, you know? Like,
Mm.
yeah, people are recognizing you on the streets, but they're recognizing you as the guy who's on The Voice, not as an artist, you know? You're a celebrity now. It's different.
Mm. Mm. That's crazy. I haven't heard that from someone. The only thing I've heard is like a friend of mine rejecting to I think to go past like a certain round or whatever because of her image.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, my following on my social media handle, 2 things. The first one is my original music. Like, people like when I write a song and just post it. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
it's non-filtered. It's not. There's no auto tune on there. It's just me writing down what I wanted to write today and sharing it with you guys.
Mhm.
The second one is kind of like a day in my life, like little parts of my personal life that I share. You know, like, I'm very open about being bisexual, and I'm very open about being vegan.
Mhm.
And like, when I was doing yoga teacher training, I was sharing that, and when I was in the police, I was sharing that. Like, you know, it's kind of like letting you know how I'm changing and evolving, and letting you and sharing that with you, right? And also, like, making sure that as long as you are on my page, you are welcome and you are safe and you're not judged. You know, like,
Mm.
that's why like when I see posts from other people about embracing yourself. Like, I always share it because I'm like, this is the kind of stuff I want to build in my own community, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like when I had my EP launch last year, you know, that when I was looking out into the audience, there was about 300, 400 people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, our in Singapore, it's illegal to be gay or LGBT of any kind.
I didn't know that.
Um, yeah, so when I was looking out at the audience, I was seeing a lot of like queer couples and like seeing that and like seeing them be comfortable in this space
Yeah.
that normally would reject them. Like that is like what I'm here to do, you know? It's like I talked openly about my boyfriend and like, oh, this next song is about, you know, this time when I went out with, because there are people in the audience who are 16
Mm-hmm.
and don't even have anybody in their community to look up to, you know? Like there are so few LGBT, openly LGBT members in Singapore, like musicians, celebrities, because they fear that their career will end.
Uh,
And it's like, I understand that and I respect your decision.
mm,
And there are also personal decisions, right? Like
yeah.
disappointment with your family and things like that. But at the same time, you also have a social responsibility to the next generation of people. And if you're showing these people that, yeah, you're the most famous guy in Singapore, but you can't even sexuality,
Mm-hmm.
you're telling these people who are kids that hey, even though you're gonna get to a big place, you're still not gonna be able to be yourself.
Mm.
And that sucks, you know? It's like it's the same thing as being an Asian American. Like it's the same thing. There's no representation.
Mm-hmm.
In Singapore there's no LGBT representation. You know, the radios are filtered. Freaking Beauty and the Beast. Uh, did you ever watch that movie?
Yeah.
You know this the scene where Gaston's like guy who like really likes him.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, that scene like Singapore wanted to cut that out because it was promoting homosexuality. When it's like in the musical Les Miserables, there's where two people of the same gender kiss, but it's not sexual or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
They banned it because they didn't want to promote that. They signed petitions so Madonna couldn't perform because she's promoting the agenda.
Oh my
Adam
gosh.
Lambert, like all of these people, they
Yeah.
get petitions signed against them to not let them perform.
Yeah.
Uh, every year we have this parade, Pride Parade, and it's called Pink Dot. And it's not a parade because in Singapore you can't protest. So,
Gosh.
or if you want to protest, you have to get a license. So
Yeah.
your protest is vetted already.
Yeah.
Um, and the Pink Dot, which is a gathering park, they cordon it off with barriers, and they assigned 50 police officers to surround them to keep them in. Like, it's not to protect the people in the pride, it's to protect the people outside of the parade from the pedophiles in the LGBT community.
Uh,
Um, and it's like, can you imagine? Like, that's the kind of shit that people in this community have to go through.
yeah.
And that's also why, like, from the get go, like, I was like, I'm not hiding my sexuality because I'm in this privileged place where my friends and my closest, the people that I care most about,
Yeah.
support me and care about me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have to embrace who I am because if I can't do that, how can I expect there to ever be change in this country, you know?
Yeah.
So going back to like, you know, like being myself and all of that, like that's why I don't filter the bad parts about me. Obviously, there are
Yeah, yeah,
things
yeah.
that I keep off Instagram and stuff like that, right? Though there are personal, things, but at the same time, I also admit that I'm not perfect, and I admit that I have an ego, and I have pride, and I have privilege, and I have these things that other people experience and have too. And like, yeah, just because I have X amount of people listening to my music doesn't make me any better than the people listening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. So, so you, so with the whole like that issue over in Singapore, so you play
yeah,
there. You've played there, obviously. And
yeah.
so how did you manage to do that? Like, is it kind of like a low key thing, and then you kind of just get on stage and you say it, and it's kind of, and then it's kind of like, oh wow, that just kind of happened, and
So the law itself is not enforced.
okay.
The law criminalizes gay people. It
Mhm.
makes it illegal.
Mhm.
But the police officers themselves do not enforce the law.
Mm.
That law. It's because that law is in place to please a generation of people who, like, a lot of Singapore is very religious.
Mm.
It's to please uh, the Muslims and the Christians who believe that LGBT is wrong in that country.
Mm.
And when I perform, right, I'm kind of just like, kind of um, knowing that what I do, like, I'm good at what I do. When I go on stage, I'm going to entertain the people. I'm going to please the people. So when I get off stage, they can't say shit because it's like, oh no, he's dating a man, but he's
Mm.
also like a really great performer here. So we can't really say anything because people enjoyed his performance. It's
Mm.
like if you're good at what you do, I guess the statement I'm trying to make is I'm good at what I do, so what doesn't shouldn't affect you.
Yeah.
That's why I make it so normal in my conversations back there. Like I don't make it this huge deal like on stage where I'm like, oh, like like I know that I shouldn't be saying this out loud. I'm dating a no. I just go like, oh, this next song is about my boyfriend, and then it's
Mm.
like a very passing statement.
Yeah.
You don't leave time for people to really process it and react because by the time they're reacting, and they're like, you know,
Yeah.
and then by the end of it, they're like, wait, that was kind of normal. Like
Mm.
it wasn't a big deal.
I see.
Um, you kind of just like weave it into your everyday conversation, be it on stage or off stage,
Mm.
so that the people listening realize that it is a normal thing that we should be able to, even if you are not okay with LGBT members, you should still be able to talk about it. And
Mm.
that's honestly more important than you accepting that. Because, so, again, another thing is these people have never talked about sexuality, and suddenly they hit 21 and they're like, wait a minute, like, like, you watch porn too? It's like, what the fuck? Like, fucking. Okay, this is a good example. Love Simon is R21 in Singapore.
Okay.
There's no sex scenes in Love Simon. Okay, it's literally like it's in America. It's a family movie,
Oh,
right?
okay. Yeah.
But in Singapore, it's R21 because there's homosexuality. But then Shape of Water, which is where a fish and a woman have sex,
Okay.
like that's fine. That's 16 years. That's 16. It's like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the people deciding that are probably members of the communities that are anti.
Mm.
Um, you know, when Pink Dot happens every year, there
Mm.
are people that, okay, for Pink Dot, if you are going, you wear, you know, to show your support or whatever.
Mm.
People are encouraged to wear white to show that they are trying to cleanse the community out of the LGBT. So they wear white to show like they are anti, basically. And churches and mosques and these people actually tell their followers to go to these events wearing white to help cleanse the space. And this is a first world country, supposed to be one of the richest countries in the world. You know, they have amazing education, people are very smart, and then they have this going on. And it's like, okay, economically you're doing so well,
Yeah.
but socially you're like going backwards, you know?
Mm.
Like this is proof that you win some, you lose some. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're a rich country, but you can't have everything. Also, also lesbians are allowed, but men are not, because a man is supposed to be a man, and
Mm.
they have responsibilities, but a woman can do whatever she wants because you know she's not as her role in this life is not as important.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh god. That's crazy.
And then Crazy Rich Asians fucking comes out and it's
Yeah,
portraying Singapore in this light, and it's like, yo,
I was
no.
thinking of that like when I was like, whoa. I mean, I'm not gonna take what a movie says and like be like, yeah, that's Singapore, but just to hear like that radical,
But I
crazy.
mean, a lot of people will take
Yeah.
one like that, you know, and that's why a lot of people from Singapore didn't like the movie because it wasn't representative of what it really is like
Mhm.
to be there. Like, it's not like what the movie is like. I enjoyed the,
Mhm.
and it was cool to see the leads be Asian,
Mhm.
and you know, being an international kid, and you know, having home be four different places. Like I understood some of the narratives in the story,
Yeah.
but the minorities in Singapore were not represented in the film,
Mhm.
like the Malays and the Indians, LGBTQ members. You know, like it's portraying, you know, the only um, minorities that showed up in Crazy Rich Asian were the fucking main.
Yeah.
And you can imagine how it made the people in Singapore feel. And it's not even that small of a minority. It's like
Yeah.
something like 30% of Singapore is not Chinese.
Yeah.
But like you're showing that the only rich people in Singapore are Chinese, and the darker skinned people in Singapore are their servants,
Mhm.
um, or like servers or people who are working in the restaurants and stuff. You know,
Mhm.
I mean that's a whole other thing, right?
Yeah.
Because that also comes down to the author of the books and the producers and the directors and all of that. And like in many ways, it was a good thing, but also, you know, you take some hits too. So yeah.
Mm. I believe I recall just scrolling through comments briefly for the trailer once, and someone had talked about LGBT and
Yeah.
just how, or it was kind of like nitpicking the character, I forgot
The
the
Filipino one.
nephew, who was just
Yeah.
kind of like
The
um
support.
yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know, like that in itself was controversial and people had different standpoints on that. Not that it was like a bad thing, whether it was like misleading, or generic and safe or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So they take him as the comedic part,
Mm-hmm.
as to not offend anyone. They make sure that he doesn't have any relationships within the movie,
Mm-hmm.
so that it doesn't please anyone. It's still ambiguous, right?
Mm-hmm.
It could just be a very feminine man,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, he's a designer, right? Like
Yeah.
they put all these stereotypes when there are ways to do it. Like I watched, Bird Box.
Yeah.
I watched Bird Box yesterday, and one of the characters early on, like it's not really a spoiler, but he did you watch it?
Yeah, I did. I did.
Yeah. So the Asian man, right, who let the people in the house.
Yeah.
It was one statement that came out, and it was like, "Oh, you and your husband are so nice," and then he goes like, "Oh yeah." That was a very natural, like quick statement. It wasn't made a big deal, but
Yeah.
that was good because like that's how it should be. It shouldn't be like this huge experience when when a character in a movie reveals their sexuality. It
Yeah.
was like a very quick like, oh yeah, you and your husband are really nice for letting me stay here, whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, it's okay. And that's the only time they mentioned sexuality. But it was so good because it was like, whoa, that was the last thing I expected from this character who is an Asian man,
Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
rich and owns this house. Oh, he's gay. Like, whoa, okay, cool. That's a new narrative that hasn't ever been painted before.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a comedic thing. He was that guy who's trying to help people out.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't know. I thought those are actually good strides for the community because
Mm.
it's not just the LGBT but the Asian too, because it's like
Mm.
showing people that Asians don't just come in one cookie cutter way. It's not just the glasses and really good at math, and you know they are like either the quiet one in the group
Yeah.
or they're like the funny. You know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Okay. How are you feeling?
Good. Uh, I mean, if you maybe I can ask you some questions.
I mean, if anything comes to mind, and I'm like kind of endless because I love learning. I've learned that I love learning through people and interaction more than anything else.
Yeah.
So, but
Okay.
yeah,
Well, I have a question for you.
okay.
When was the last time you learned something new about yourself?
Um,
And not like, oh, I actually like mint Oreo. Like something.
I want to say a few days ago, actually, and so this is actually recent family stuff that I had to deal with last night
Yeah.
into this morning. So there was some drama where, yeah, now it's going on the record, um, because we're recording.
Ha 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 ha.
Um, so in my family, portrayed a certain way, and
Yeah.
it's just not favorable. So I kind of that's just something that I've dealt with for a long time, and my cousins, all the younger ones, come to me and look up to me, and ask for advice or guidance, or they just want to kind of let something out that they don't normally they would never tell to their parents, even though
Yeah.
they should, discussing real
Yeah.
things or pivotal decisions. And so this time it was massive enough where, fingers were pointed at me, even though that was denied at the table yesterday. I'm not taking that personally or anything, but I know that that's a true thing. And so when I got, blamed essentially for manipulating or brainwashing someone into being a different person, and for making them confused and lost and unhappy and stuff. Again, that wasn't said at the table, but it was said. It was said in a discussion with like my mom, you know. But when it came down to the wire and we were all there, like that didn't come out. I was like, oh, it's interesting. So, I had come home after like a meeting to talk with my mom because she was like fired up, and my brother gave me a heads up about like, oh, mom's disappointed in you and this and that, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And she said that she had just met with the parents of my cousin who were like going off about me to my mom, and she kind of just like bit her tongue because she wants to be able to see both sides before she speaks, but she was kind of absorbed by what they were saying, and then she was just saying certain things. I was like, nah, mom, like I'm pretty straightforward and honest about all this stuff. I'm like, I don't, tell people what to do, or I'm not out here telling him to do this, do that. I'm just very, I try to just deconstruct people's emotions and see where it comes from and try to give them some like health pointers. And I also try to help them see that, like trying to help him specifically see that your family's not the enemy, like they love you and they want the best for you. And then you probably can't see that right now, but just know that they have good intent. I'm like, you're lucky, bro. So, whatever, all that stuff. And during that whole conversation, it was probably like 2.5 hours that me and my mom were going back and forth. And it wasn't an argument. It was, she kept expressing concern and like viewpoints of like, oh, well, they're not going to see it that way. I'm like, mom, I don't care what they think. I'm like, I'm concerned about how you feel. I know who I am, and I'm totally confident in what I'm saying and doing. Like what they think and how I explain myself probably won't matter to them, and it doesn't need to. So I just want to make sure that you trust that like I'm good and I'm not affected by this, and that I hope you're okay and not stressing out too much. But in that moment, and then after the fact, and then the next day, a feeling, and I refer to like my sacral chakra like was on fire, right? And usually I have that feeling when I'm super driven, or I'm getting a little antsy, or I'll say like I'm tapping into ego, right? And my new conditioned and more wise behavior, and so and it's also the person that I've always strived to be, just like always being able to be calm and analyze stuff. And I never say things I regret because I don't go nuts in the heat of the moment, which is why it's so important for me to just listen. And I'm just like, I instead of doing what I know how to do, which is handle things peacefully within myself and be like, yes, and then release and let go and kind of just move on, because I have so many different like mental morals or elements or principles that I follow that help me find that peace every time. But this time I was like, this feeling came up for a reason, whether it's I allowed that energy into my space, or maybe it reached deep down somewhere into my soul and it actually emotionally affected me subconsciously.
Yeah.
Emotionally affected me. Yeah. And I was like, okay, instead of quickly like releasing this and like having this, turning it into peace, I'd rather figure out why this feeling came out. Because I'd like to think like, oh yeah, like I'm at peace 100% and like nothing bothers me, and I'll say that for like positive reinforcement, but I don't want to be lying to myself either, because I know what suppression is like. So I was like, okay, so for this to come up, am I still somewhere deep down there like angry? So there was that, and then also I'm like, oh, this feeling's coming up, how am I dealing with it? What are my natural conditioned urges right now,
Tendencies.
right? So then I was like, okay, I know that this feeling before, whenever it comes up, like naturally I want to work naturally, and that is because maybe I feel like no one can relate to me at that moment, or no one can understand, or no one can help me, or I'm not used to being comforted. So instead, I do creative work or I do structured work and just like, you know, and I know that's before when I was still trying to figure myself out. A lot of it came out of like anger and trying to prove a point and be like, I'm gonna make it. Like, I don't care if you don't believe me. Like, I'm gonna show you one day. And I was able eventually be able to be like, no, I don't need to do that. I don't need to use
Mm,
that as my driving factor. I want to do it for myself. But for that
mm,
feeling to come up, and I'm like, oh, maybe that's still a real thing on some level, you know. But it's
mm,
just not a conscious thought day to day. And then I was like, I also I'm recognizing my tendencies, but I was like, what about trying something different? I'm like, usually I don't reach out to people because I'm, and this is like true to this day, like I always try to sort through my emotions or let it out creatively. Um,
mm,
and then I'm good, right? But I was like, let me try reaching out to people just because, even though I'm not necessarily seeking an answer, because I'm like
yeah,
I'm sure of who I am. Like I know that if I want to let
mm,
this go and like be in a good place, I can do that. And so I maybe texted like 6 people and I was just like, hey, like I need some good vibes or whatever, and got a response back from most of them. And they were telling me stuff that I was aware of and that I knew, and I was like, cool. I'm like, I'm glad that you could
mhm,
be such a good person to me when I need it. You know, that's beautiful, and I really appreciate that. Um, and it helped. It didn't take anything away, but it
mm,
helped. And
mm,
one of my friends actually challenged me. He was like, bro, after explaining this stuff to me, and you analyze your feelings and stuff, why don't you just try doing the opposite and just like, I don't know, like going out and not doing the analyzing thing, and at least you tried something out of your pattern. And I was like, that's a
mm,
good point. So I thought about that and I was like, okay. So I guess I didn't like fully, I just know that there's something left that I need to figure out. And
mhm,
that, you can say, on some level is like a discovery or a learning that I still have probably certain emotions that I have to decide what I want to do with it, or like,
mhm.
maybe I'm not, maybe I'm like, I forgive 95%, but there's still a 5% of me that like,
Holds on to things.
yeah. So that's kind of like the most recent. I don't know if that like
But I mean,
helps.
I think it's good that you are self-aware
Mm,
and you're able to pick up on that because it means that you can put away your pride and just admit that you're not at, how do I say, you are not at the place that you want to be at yet
mm-hmm,
because it means you still have so much to learn.
mm-hmm.
And I think that's all of us too. Um, nice.
What about you?
Okay.
Oh,
Uh,
or if you had a
wait. I want to
question.
ask you another
Okay,
question.
okay.
It's kind of fun. I can see why you do it now. Yeah. Yeah. When was the last time you made a new friend?
Last time I made a new friend. Shuffling. Um, so I don't want to say that yet.
The definition is completely up to you.
Okay, I was gonna like kind of ask that. I was like someone I've just never met before, or just someone I just don't have a relationship with. Um, okay, yeah, well, technically, someone on stream, where I've never, like, she's within the same community because she dances and stuff, but we've never had a conversation ever. And so
Mm,
her coming on stream was our first conversation, and we like, that's funny, a new friendship. So
that's nice.
yeah, I just like I reached out to her about stream, and it's cool because like when you talk about like exploring and finding different people and whatnot, like I have no idea for some people like what they're like at all. And she's someone that's like, yeah, like I'm working with, you know like adults who have like mental issues and this and that, and
Mm.
she can relate to a lot of the stuff I talk about, and we have a lot of the same views and like how the importance of healing and stuff. I was like, oh, that's so cool that there's somebody else in the community who's like a big advocate of that. And
Yeah.
she owns up to her flaws and she tries to work on them actively. And I'm like, yeah, that's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Um, okay. And if you have any other ones, I think I have like two questions for you. Um,
Okay, I have one more.
okay, go ahead.
What were your rose, bud, and thorn of last year and this year?
Rosebud and Thorn.
Do you know what that is?
I'm gonna guess and say Rose is like the awesomest, most successful time. Bud like the growth. The Thorn be like shit. That sucked.
Okay, yes, the bud is specifically something that you're looking forward to.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay,
But so your rose and thorn is last year, your bud is for this.
okay. Um, my Rose easily last year was what I had touched on earlier, which was just finally reaching a place where I felt at peace internally. Um,
Mm.
but and then realizing that the only way I was able to get there was to really start trusting my gut and letting go of everyone else's opinions, but then also all the things that I knew I loved but weren't serving me in that moment. So, like, a lot of dance stuff I had to walk away from, even though that's such a huge part of my life and it's done so much
Mm.
for me. And I've created, friendships and foundations and stories all there.
Mm.
And so I'm not participating. All I do now is I just teach
Mm.
combinations, and I just teach like, or give like advice and stuff to like my kids and whatnot. But I don't do any collaborations. I don't go out and take classes. Um, I don't even manage the group that I used to manage. And I've
Mm.
managed a group my whole life, and my whole life meaning I started at 16, I'm 25 now, and I've always been directing something, and to
Mhm.
finally be able to walk away from that was hard. Um, it got, like, letting go got easier the more I did it,
Yeah.
but there was so much peace in that. And then also, like, a part of me is like, it's like, being attached to your vision and wanting to see it, you know, be completed and see it through, and knowing that you have the capabilities to do it. But,
Mhm.
then being able to walk away from that and then entrust it into whoever is there. And
Mhm.
I'm not even guiding the vision. Like, it's just, my friends who I've gotten really close with, who have decided what this group is going to be and what they're going to do. And I completely let go of that for myself. And I've learned, and this is not necessarily part of it, but I learned the difference last year, like halfway through last year, the difference between like just having an ambition and like being tuned into your intuition. Intuition's more immediate and you see it and you feel it and you're connected to it. But an ambition's kind of like it's somewhere on the map, but it's
Yeah.
just, it might not be right in front of you at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I've been in a really good place since last year of
That's a
February.
good rose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Um, the thorn, that one's actually a little tough. Just because after that time, like, I don't really perceive
Yeah.
anything as difficult or hard or harsh.
See, okay, see, so let me answer that. Basically, same. For me,
Oh,
thorns, like thorns are like, I mean, there are obviously things that don't, right? And it happens a lot,
yeah.
like, oh, you didn't actually get to, you know, go to the show, or
Mm,
like this friend decided they didn't want to stop friends with you, like that happens, but
mm,
there are so many silver linings that come out from everything that everything bad that happens that you're
Yeah.
kind of like your mind kind of forgets about the thorns because you're like you got something good out of it or something good came out of it.
Yeah.
So instead of a thorn, if you can't bad happen, because some people's thorns are actually bad. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, like their love of their life cheated on them. Like that shit's bad, you know. But
Yeah.
if you can't think of a thorn, just think about something that didn't go to plan, but like something good came out.
Okay.
Or you can just tell people something bad.
Okay, let's see. Let's see. I guess just I guess touching back on the no, wait. Um, okay, you know what? Actually, we'll just say this as a general thing because it does happen for me. Um, so in the nature of what I do, which is just I get into really intimate parts of people's lives, like this, and we really dive in deep. Sometimes it's public, sometimes it's not, and people that interact with me, like I don't beat around the bush or anything. I really try to get down to the nitty gritty because I'm interested in trying to help that person overcome things so that they can, reach their potential and be happy, um, no matter the cost. And because of that desire and that approach and the extremism and how it's so against a lot of the things that we're taught and we're raised, I
Mm.
I literally create some negative energy that um and it's not like I don't even have to deal with these people face to face necessarily, but I'm affecting people from families, and then they take in that energy, and it's either going to turn out and be great for me, and like the parents and the family like really respect and love me, and like they'll get like shout me out or whatever, or the opposite where they don't publicize anything, but I hear it from the kids being young adults or whatever, um, that I'm just not a good person, and
Mm,
and
yeah.
yeah, that's kind of like my personal adversity, but it's my truth, and I just have to accept that that comes with the territory, that even though I have good intent, and I ultimately believe that time will really show us that it was a good thing. I have faith in that, and it's been able to, reign true for some and not yet for others. But there are beautiful moments that occur for those people who make those decisions that ultimately, on some level, you could say tear apart their family on some level. Um, so I'll give an example. Like one of the kids that I mentored, slash, I'm just good friends with him now, and he's way more independent now. So he's built a lot of character and found his own voice through me and a few other people he's looked up to and dance combined.
Yeah.
And he has a long way to go, and like I personally believe that his empathy level isn't so hot. Like it's just really hard for him to really see someone else's perspective who sees it different for him, that care about him but just don't agree with what he's doing. And so the way he then treats them, from what I hear, sometimes isn't so great. But then I also hear like, hey, like I did something crazy yesterday, and I was like, what's up? He was like, I was in the kitchen, and I don't know why, like I was like hesitating so hard, and it was like really nerve wracking, but I walked up to my mom, and like I kissed her on the cheek, and then I told her I loved her, and I did the same thing to my dad. She's never done that before. And then he was like, I love you. And then as he's like walking downstairs, like his dad, I guess he looked at his dad and he was like about to cry. And he was saying like, oh, like I feel like a dad again. And I was like, that's the same kid that is causing all of this like trouble for the family and going against what they're saying and stuff. But like he's figuring it out. And as he starts to do that more, I believe his heart will start to open up and see, and he'll start to see what they want for him and whatnot, and show more compassion to his parents and stuff. So I believe in that, And I don't think transformation is easy, or it's not always beautiful. Like, it's just not. And so that's one of my constant thorns of life, knowing that I have that kind of energy that,
Yeah,
and I don't have to absorb it necessarily, but I know it's there, you know?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, also you have to remember that some knowledge is not. Some people are not ready for specific kinds of knowledge,
Yeah.
and I think like navigating that too, and like talking to a person, understanding what kind of knowledge they need.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be part of your journey too,
Yeah.
because sometimes when you share pieces of knowledge too early with someone who's not ready for it,
Yeah.
it can actually hurt them
Mm-hmm.
and hurt the people around them too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's something that I've also had to learn, like the past 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
is knowing when I can talk about specific things with people. If people are going to think I'm crazy, or if people are going to respond.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, for me, like, my good gauge is waiting for someone to bring it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's like an invitation for me to make a comment or, hopefully teach them something that they don't know yet. Because like when you have all of this knowledge about, the way of life, or how you should lead a life,
Mm-hmm.
you're just excited to share it with everyone. You
Mm-hmm.
want people to know what you know, and you want people you care about to live their lives to their potential, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it's like before they can learn the next lesson, they have to learn something on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And before they get on to step 4, they have to complete step 3. But if you tell them about step 4, step 5, you might overwhelm them, or
Yeah.
you might confuse them, or you might rush them, and then they don't finish their step 3 yet. And it's like, it's that's something that like any kind of teacher has to navigate through,
Mm.
because you get learners that are really fast,
Yeah.
need to sit on this particular thing before they can move on. And
Mm.
like that's one way of like um, enacting your purpose,
Yeah.
but also making sure you don't interfere with the natural way of things. Like
Mm.
there are specific energy flows that exist that you should try to avoid
Mm.
interrupting, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I believe in multiple lives, and there are some things that I do believe I want to get to learn this life,
Mm.
but that's almost like a blessing because it means that I'm allowed to be flawed,
Mm.
and that also means that the next time I come back, I have new things to learn,
Mm-hmm.
and it also is a reminder that every person that meets you, you could either serve as a lesson or you could learn something from it.
Yeah.
And like that's also another thing like you have to remember is like when you are guiding someone, you also have to remember that wait, maybe they're too,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe in this very moment they don't need to hear what I wanted to say,
Mm.
and instead let them figure out on their own, because sometimes knowledge has to be through experience,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
um, like the nature of what you do, I believe, is,
Mm.
but also making sure that you do it in a non-invasive way is also
Mm.
right, because there are very natural ways to introduce knowledge, and then there are ways where you're almost raping their mind, and you're kind of like, why don't you see it like this?
No.
Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
should be
Yeah.
better.
Of
And
course.
it's like, then they're just like, fuck, like I hate this because it hurts, you know, like you are deconstructing my emotions too quickly. And it's like, fuck, like, you know, just stop, you know? But
Yeah.
also at the same time, obviously some people like that, you know?
Yeah.
But having to figure out what kind of person they are or the way they process it is so important before you start giving them
Oh yeah.
information, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like some people also learn by rote learning and being around you.
Mm.
And like that I've definitely seen. I've definitely seen people who are around change.
Yeah.
And like that's also one way I learn by
Mm.
being around people that I want to be like.
Mm-hmm.
Like that also comes into play with music and stuff, right? Like I always make sure my band members are like a million times better than me
Mm.
because it means that I'm going to learn,
Mm.
you know, and like sorry to them, you know, because maybe musically I'm not as good as them, but
Yeah.
for me, yeah, it might be selfish, but I want to learn from you guys. So
Mm.
you know, my drummer or my pianist or whatever, like they're all really great musicians, and like we respect each other on different in different ways, right?
Mm.
Same thing with um, the way you learn, right? Sometimes the lesson is through showing and not telling,
Right.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of hard to do on your projects. You know,
Yeah.
like sometimes through a podcast or a talk, um, all you can really do is tell. You can't really show, right? Because
Yeah.
how do I show you I don't have an ego? Like you can't, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously word choice. Like you can choose to string or glue a bunch of words together to make you sound like something else, you know. But that's like anyone who wants to be some kind of guide or teacher to learn, navigate through, understand.
Mm.
Yeah,
So I can definitely relate to that and have learned that through just the entire process.
yeah,
And it, it wasn't until recently that I guess I recognized that even with that mindful approach and doing that to the best of my ability, but then also when people come to me one on one, there is that where I just kind of ask questions. If they come to me with something specific, I'm like, okay, and we kind of just narrow in and focus on that topic. Um, and I'm not quick to jump in and give my 2 cents. I'm really just about asking and helping them uncover their own emotions, really. Um,
mhm,
and and then at the point where whether it's I share something from my life or I share other people's stories. So that's hence like these conversations are like stories for me that I collect, and then I share with other people, and I'm like, just to give some perspective, whether it's to be like, oh yeah, someone else has gone through this and this is what's happened for them,
yeah,
or whatever. And I've learned recently, and I put it to words, and I thought it was wicked funny, and I said it to one of my friends, and he was like, that's the truest thing I've ever heard you say, which is like, people that I impact, when it doesn't, well, people in general like falsely represent me, and that's totally okay. And that's just what I mean by that is like, when it comes to the heats of the moment, and this person is going through like a change as a person, and then the family it's like, oh, like what's going on, and then they get into a little something something, and then that person will reference something I might have said or who I am, or um like recently I heard,
Vattana told me that I should
yeah,
kind of
whether it's
speak it.
like I said, like whether it's like because I said it, or because like, oh, that's how like he lives that way and he's all good, it's like that. And then they don't really have much other else to kind of go off of, and then I get painted as this person. I'm like, well, can't win them
Yeah,
all, so it's like,
yeah,
then for others it's like, oh well, it's like I decided to make this change, and that's why I want to go buy more fruits. I'm sorry if that's weird, or I've gotten over this anxiety,
Yeah.
and they're like, oh, that's so amazing, and he's such a good person. So it's like, and I really do not try to be like my best, right? I try not to be intrusive, and obviously nothing's perfect, but I know that at the end
Yeah.
of the day, the way anyone perceives information is completely up to them and what they want to do with it.
Yeah.
So I'd like to
Yeah.
think of even like my stuff as like, pieces of work, whether it's a moment in time or a post that they see. It's the same thing with like a song. If a song makes you feel a certain way, you decide to live that way. And like, well, I praise this artist, or because this person's music tells me this and I really love them or
Mhm.
whatever. But I just feel like it's different because of the medium. Obviously, like, I'm
Mhm.
a real person, but even if it's not me, sometimes it's just my content and people never talk to me.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and I still will get like disliked, and I'm like, I've never even talked to your kid. I don't even know who they are.
Yeah.
Like,
No, see, I get that. I get that because like you can't really decide who takes in what you want.
yeah.
Or you can't decide, and also you can't decide what they take away from what you're sharing,
Uh
right?
huh. Yep.
So like for me, my own experience is like when I have meet and greets and stuff like that,
Mhm.
that when people come to me, they put me on a pedestal. That's like the number one pet
Mm.
peeve I have, which is like people painting me to be this person that I'm not.
Mhm.
They come to me and they're like, "Oh my god!" Like they're about to cry out of shock, and I'm like, "Yo, dude, like I'm literally made of the same thing as you. Like, don't do this. Like you're about to break down and stuff." And like, I totally understand that because I've definitely been a fan before.
Yeah.
But also, like, remember, like, like I, I'm human. I'm just like you. Except what I do is different to you, and that's totally fine.
Mm.
And yeah, I don't know. Like, I totally can relate. Like, you can't really choose what they take from it.
Mhm.
Like, some people can take my songs about and make it so like, yeah, it's okay that I'm flawed. That's why I'm a bad person. Like,
Yeah. Uh
that's
huh.
me.
Uh
And I'm
huh.
like, yeah, that's exactly what I was going. So glad you got that. Or like they'll listen to a breakup song and they're like, oh my god, this song's telling me to break up with my boyfriend, and I'm like, yo, like, do what is best for you.
Yeah.
But if you're in a good relationship, don't throw it away because you heard my song. Like letting go isn't always good. Like
Yeah.
you just have to think for yourself. But luckily, most of my listeners are very smart and sensitive people. Like
Mm.
you build the community based on what you create, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of the people that come to my shows are very cool. Actually, like 40% of my listeners are above the age of 28. So like
Mm. Wow.
I get a lot of adults who message me and they're like, "Oh, I've been uh divorced for 20 like I've been married for 20 years and I just got a divorce, and like listening to your music like helps me understand what that is, what that means for me." And like that is a huge like that was a huge turning point for me, is realizing that my music isn't necessarily for this 15, 16-year-old Shawn Mendes fan, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
It's serving a different group of people that I should be proud of. And honestly, the 50-year-olds are the ones who's going to give me. So I'm just saying, like, Shawn Mendes can have his fans, and I can have fans, and like,
Yeah.
that's totally fine. Honestly, though, it's the older people that pay.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
older people who show up at your shows buying the VIP tickets because the 15-year-olds don't have jobs yet, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. That's so cool that you can relate. Um, so this is like a side thing, and I had written something, and it was intense. If it was a song, I felt like it would have been different, but because it's a post, and so
If it was a song, what?
I felt like if it was a song, maybe it would have been perceived differently. But I wrote a post on Facebook, and that actually got my family like really. This post tied into the drama that was about like my cousin and me affecting him negatively. So the timing
But
wasn't
it
so hot.
was it explicit? Like they knew it was about that, right?
They felt like it was.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So it wasn't me like um
Okay.
going. So what I'll do, just like as a creator, you take energy and inspiration, you kind of transform it into something. So what I did was
Yeah.
I decided to take a ton of the anonymous notes that I had that were
Yeah.
just about like not the greatest stuff, like being sad or and then a few things being grateful to me. Um, I wanted to share all those things, but I then naturally I was like I want to connect it to something like why does this happen? And so just intuitively going through the constant stories and the things that I see, I'm like, well, it's because like what do we prioritize? And so for me, whether it's an opinion or a fact of sorts, or maybe it covers, maybe there's some truth to it, but it's not the entire truth, like however you want to see it, and however anyone decides to see that post. Um, so everyone saw it differently, but the adults specifically felt like they're being attacked because I was like, dear aunts and uncles and like grandparents and moms and dad, whatever, right? And so for me, it's like I think we should look at the way we're parenting our kids, like
Yeah.
so that's kind of where I'm coming from, and then I say it and I said it in a way that's not professional according to my family members, and they felt like they're being attacked, and they literally kind of missed the whole point. I'm like, I'm not trying to say you suck. I'm just saying that I think the way we prioritize stuff in this society is why we have a lot of the issues that we
Mhm,
have,
I promise.
right?
But the thing is, though, like maybe it's. I think that it comes to a point where it's been scientifically proven that after you hit like 40 or something, you can't change as a
mm,
person.
mm-hmm,
Like obviously there are specific cases and there are special cases and you can change to some extent, but
mm-hmm,
a lot of who you are is the result of 40 years of learning, right?
mm-hmm.
So when you make that post, I think you're telling a lot of that are already set in mind
Yeah.
that how they've set their mind up is not right.
Mm,
And instead, maybe, I guess, like shifting the focus onto the next generation of parents, which is us
mm,
and a little bit older.
mm-hmm,
Like, if you targeted it at the 20 to 30s and going, hey, you're about to have a kid, make sure your priorities are in the right place. Versus, hey, you have an 18-year-old child and you fucking spent 18 years bringing them up in a really not good way.
mm,
Try and change it now. It's like, they're probably going to be like, what the fuck, man? 18 years of my life, like, spent, like, not raising my child right. Like, what are you saying about my parenting? And, like, I can see why
mm-hmm,
their egos and their pride were hurt, you
mm-hmm,
know?
mm-hmm,
Like, and I'm sure you can too, but
mm-hmm,
also, like, a lot of the problems that exist today is the result of the generation, right?
mm-hmm.
Just like how the problems of the next generation are because of us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But also like it's to me it's almost like inefficient way of spending your energy because you're trying to tell people who don't want to change that they need to change. And then it's like, Vattana, what are you trying to say?
Mm-hmm,
Like,
mm-hmm,
you know?
mm-hmm,
And like that I think that there is a time you
mm-hmm,
the flack that you did.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I mean, I was just gonna ask uh, like your opinion on like, so, even with like the adults and some of my cousins, like some people, saw it as like it's not, like they kind of like it's not really about, um, so I mean, one of my cousins is like, in general, it's like a controversial post, and everyone will have their own perceptions of it. And some people think it's great, and some people think it's not. Like one of my like an adult comment, and it's just like, thank you for what you do and your honesty and stuff, because I've been able to take the things that you say and apply it to my own kids and develop better relationships with them, right? So I'm in I'm in a place where like, and this is like a brand image thing too, where I think I used to definitely be a little more cookie cutter. I'm still thoughtful, but I'm and I don't always cover every area when I speak or share something. I kind of just
Mm-hmm.
come from a certain place. Just like, how if you write a song about breaking up, and you're not obviously covering every single aspect, you're just focusing on a certain type of energy and whatnot. Um, so I guess like, as I'm not sure what I'm trying to ask, but like, how do you, like, my family and stuff, from their perspective, not everyone, but most of them were like, I would have just worded it differently. Even though what they
Mm,
suggested, even like they didn't, I honestly felt like there was too much blinded anger to really give me
mm,
anything constructive. Um, Whereas like one of my cousins who doesn't fully agree with the post is like, with so like the fact that you have a following and that you have power and you do have influence, I just think that you should really think about what you post. And then you have my brother who's like, well, the reason why he has an audience and a following is because he is who he is,
mm-hmm.
or else people wouldn't listen. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, so at that point, um I'm not closed to hearing what people have to say. I think it's interesting. Sometimes I'm controversial, sometimes I'm not. Um, so, like, what is your opinion on that style of, like, literally what I just said? And like, like, would you have, like, as I guess maybe as a content creator, as an individual, an artist, like, you
Yeah.
wouldn't go in that direction because of what you just said and what you know? Or for me, I kind of just, I'm unapologetic about certain things, and I'm more
Yeah.
about trying to help people look in the mirror. And sometimes I'm really kind about it, like for real, and other times I'm not.
Okay, I think that if you're being one to one,
Mm-hmm.
it's good to be customized, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
good to, you know,
absolutely.
I think if you're trying to be general and just target anyone who's reading it,
Mm-hmm.
you do have to find the middle between kindness and force it in your face. Because at the end of the day, there is advantages to being um, politically correct.
Okay.
Like there are, it's before you can get to that place,
Mm-hmm.
you have to do things to get there, right? And it's not about lying or it's not about silencing yourself. It's about making sure that your content is digestible
Mm-hmm.
to most audiences.
Mm-hmm.
And like just to like comment on what you were saying earlier, I think that people of the same generation
Mm-hmm.
understand each other better.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these middle-aged people, like 40, 50-year olds, they honestly learn the most people their own.
Yeah.
For example, when you become a parent, you're not going to ask a 16-year-old how to, and you're not going to ask your grandparents how to raise someone. You're going to ask people who are around your age going like, yo, so do I give them an iPad or not? Like, what am I supposed to do?
Mm-hmm.
And you go to college, you're going to ask how they're doing with their student debt or how are they navigating long distance relationships with people who are going through long distance relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're trying to teach these people, like, yeah, you're gonna have special cases where you end up connecting with this 60-year-old, or you're gonna end up connecting with this 10-year-old who just somehow understands what you're trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
In general, I think it's good to talk as if you're talking to. Okay, wait, let me backtrack a bit. I
Okay,
think
okay.
you kind of
Yeah.
is when I make content, I don't baby it for 15, 16-year-olds.
Okay.
Just like how I don't try and sound too mature, like I'm talking to 4-year-olds. I make it so it's suitable for people my age
Mhm.
to digest it, right? Like, if I went onto Instagram, what would I want to read? This is the kind of stuff I'd want, right?
Mhm.
Like, obviously, that depends on your brand and all of that. Like, that also comes to play, right? Because if the majority of your demographic 12-year-olds, then yeah, you're going to make your content animated and colorful and make sure it's engaging in a specific way. Or if most of your audience is 60 year old, you're going to use mediums that make sense, right? Like, so I think the first thing that you should do is like check out your demographic and find the medium between that. If 20% are below 20, and you find that middle ground and say, where am I going to most connect with and grow from? And anyone who's on the bell curve, on the ends of the whatever the bell curve,
Mhm.
it's up to them whether they want to stay. And the more you do that, your bell curve will refine itself into, like you have the diehard fans, and then you have, right?
Mhm.
Those aren't the people who are going to pay your bills, and those aren't the people who are going to be loyal to you.
Mhm.
Like, the diehard fans, honestly, imagine if you started, like, in terms of music, if I went from jazz to pop, the
Mhm.
diehard fans are going to be like, either going to be like, I support you no matter what, or I liked you and loved you for this specific sound, and you change now. Like, I want the old you back, you know?
Mhm.
You want to find a medium who are the people who like most of your posts, because that gives you leeway to change and evolve.
Mhm.
So let's say your medium is 26, you know? The way you structure your post should be, instead of hey aunties and uncles, should be hey anyone who is about to have a kid or are raising their kids, this is what I think.
Mhm.
And that way it's less targeting, right? Like,
Mhm.
you see all of these posts that are targeted, like hey all non-meat eaters, all meat eaters,
Mhm.
look at what you're doing.
Mhm.
Instead, you go like, hey, people who are looking to have less meat in their diet, this is what I think are the pros and cons. Like, the way you phrase it is so important.
Yeah.
You can't you can't victimize your audience before they've started listening. You can't, like, that's a tactic for sure.
Yeah.
And it works for some people, but not most.
Mhm.
Like, I remember when I was in the police, one of my squad mates, his way of motivating people is by cheating on them.
Yeah.
Like, look at you, you fat piece of shit. Like, you're gonna give up now? Like, what the fuck? You have to, like, X amount more. And then it's like, yo, that doesn't help me. Like, if anything, that just makes me not like you more, and that just makes me want to give up.
Yeah.
Like, for me, I am encouraged by people who go like, "Oh my gosh, look how much you've run already. Like,
Mhm.
you can keep going. Just go a little bit more." Like, that for me is reinforcement, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, like, I guess, like, for you, like, for me, like, my opinion on, take the approach which is the less invasive, less
Mhm.
controversial.
Mhm.
You can be controversial, especially if it's really going and
Mhm.
you're trying to help someone,
Mhm.
but don't be controversial for the sake of attention,
Mhm.
because that brings in a lot of negative energy
Mhm.
that you will have to deal with and the people around you, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Like I actually, so I went to Facebook and I searched for the post, right?
Yeah.
And I found the thing that you were talking
Mhm.
about. And the way it starts, it sounds like the first line, which is "Dear parents, aunts, uncles."
Mhm.
It comes from a very condescending
Mm.
tone.
Okay.
Like, okay, what is Vattana trying to say about me now?
Yeah.
Versus, like, hey, anyone who is an adult figure or is some kind of guide, like,
Mm.
this is my 2 cents. Like, I get that you're trying to preach, but I get that you're trying to educate and get in a good place.
Mhm.
But there are some things that you may be doing wrong, which is, and then you say your piece, you know?
Mhm.
Like, of course, if you're trying to target people your age or in the 20s, you can tone it different. You can be like, okay, you're about to have a kid, don't fuck up, okay? And
Mhm.
here's how to not fuck up.
Mhm.
And honestly, people will respond better like that. Like,
Mhm.
you're talking like your friends, right?
Mhm.
But if you're trying to talk to people who are older than you and who are your authorities, you
Mhm.
have to word it in a way that's less disrespectful to them,
Mhm.
right? Because at the end of the day, like, I don't know how your family dynamic is
Mhm.
in culture,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
It's all about because I'm older than you have to respect me.
Mhm.
And because I'm older than you, what I'm saying is immediately more valuable than what you're saying.
Mhm.
So you have all these people looking at you like this 25-year-old guy is trying to tell me who I've lived 20 years longer, so technically more knowledgeable.
Mhm.
Like that's what they believe.
Mhm.
Like anything he's saying is out of a place of immaturity, and he doesn't understand anything he's saying. He doesn't have a child. Like
Yeah.
that's the tone that you're going from,
Mm.
and hence these people that you're trying to help, if you're genuinely trying to help,
Mhm.
they're not going to respond well. You know,
Mhm.
you're. It's like trying to get someone who is lazy at school, going, "Yo, you lazy fucker!" Like, you know, there's a reason why that they're not in school. It's because that
Mhm.
look at you, like all you're doing is ever you're just going up. Instead, you go like, "Hey, tell me what's up." Like, and I mean, you know this because you've helped a lot of people already, but
Mhm.
you have to make sure you draw parallels with that
Mhm.
and connecting with people who are older than you,
Mhm.
because it's not that dissimilar.
Yeah.
It's you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
how you approach it should be how you approach them, and understanding that there are things that they know more than you.
Mhm.
Like having a kid, I think having a kid is something that only if you've ever had a kid you will truly really understand what that's like, right?
Yeah.
But there are also things that they don't know because they have a kid and you don't.
Mhm.
And you are 25 in 2019. Like you know what's up. You know kind of a bit about the next generation and you kind of know a bit about the previous generation, right? You're
Mhm.
bang in the middle.
Mhm.
So you're just trying to find that right wording. Or even better yet, like before you post something,
Mhm.
find somebody who understands your intent,
Mhm.
but also understands the audience that you're trying to. Like, for example, your mom. Like, I don't know your family at all.
Mhm.
If your mom is that person, show her what you're about to post and be like, hey, I just wanted your opinion on it. I don't expect you to change my mind because chances are you're going to still post it.
Mhm.
But it's good to get a heads up like, okay, this person is in this age range. How are they going to receive it? And that's how, like, a lot of companies and business people from their target group to
Mhm.
come in and test their products, right? And
Mhm.
then from there you go. Like for me, I know sad songs do better than my happy song,
Yeah.
and that's fact. Like that's not me trying to be like, oh, I true. And like I have to learn how to incorporate sad songs into my content
Mhm.
without compromising the things that I want to write about, like which
Mm.
is I'm in love right now, so let me write a song. Like same thing. Like okay, right now I want to write about educate. I haven't read it completely. I didn't read it at all. Actually, I'll read it later. But if it's a post about trying to get people to prioritize what they want out of their kids more,
Mm-hmm.
it has to come from a place of if I was 40 or 50, if I was an aunt and uncle in this, and like obviously certain things that they don't, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I didn't know the things I didn't know, this, how would I 3 years ago, before I became who I am today, take this?
Mm-hmm.
Just like how, like prior to spirituality and learning, if somebody came up to me and started talking about it, I'd be like, "What the fuck are you on about? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't want to waste my time with you. Like, what do you mean aura? It's like that's shit's make believe.
Yeah.
How would I want to receive that information?
Mm-hmm.
The way you word it, all of the best um, uh, entrepreneurs, how they convince their people to work for them and stay loyal is through wording, and it's through the way they charm or talk to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's one of the ways to get higher up on whatever ladder you want.
Mm-hmm.
You have to work with people. It's a people world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for you to, if you want this to be your career and you have to learn to please people to the point where you become Lady Gaga or Beyonce, where you can go, I don't like you, get out of this. Or like, you can be like fucking Lady Gaga and be like, I fear that you're gonna lose your career,
Mm-hmm.
right? Before you get to that point, you do have to do a little bit of dick sucking and, like complimenting and filtering.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not compromising who you are as a person. That's just being smart. And
Yeah.
that's just converting what you know and the knowledge that you have into something that is digestible to another person.
Mm-hmm.
And that is another, like, that shows another depth of knowledge that you have if you can, because the people who know you will know and understand that what you're trying to say on this post is directed at a certain group versus Vattana is just angry again and he's just making another.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
it's received completely differently, especially timing. Like the timing of the post with what just happened is probably
Yeah.
it would be received as wow, Vattana's just venting,
Mm-hmm.
he's angry and he's just trying to make us look like present us in a bad light.
Mm-hmm.
Versus Vattana experienced this and he's trying to educate me.
Mm-hmm.
Let me, even though I know so much more than him, let me try and see what he's trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like I'm rambled a bit.
No,
Sorry.
no, 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 no. That's good, and it's kind of reminiscent. I think I'm trying to understand all of that, and it's nice to hear from someone who really understands that and can break things down, which is great. And I had gone through that personal realization myself a while back.
Yeah.
There was a time actually I used to write a lot back when like Tumblr was like a thing.
Yeah.
Um, dude, my old stuff was crazy. Cause
Now,
so dude,
sorry.
no, that's okay. Um, I used to like, I used to just straight up write from an emotionally painful place, um, and I would speak for, and I would start recognizing that I started to get followers, people that could relate, and all that kind of stuff. So it was attention and whatever, and I could relate to these people and vice versa, and I felt like I was speaking for them. I was speaking from my place, but then I spoke from a place of like feeling inferior and being treated differently, because of my not aligning with society,
Yeah.
and just being looked down on for all these different reasons, right? So I would write from a place of anger, and I knew that, and I knew that it wasn't gonna be received by everyone positively or anything like that. So some people were like, yeah, this is awesome, and others were just like, nah. But then as like years kind of went on and I started to learn more things, my tone and my perception of stuff changed, and
Yeah.
I then started writing stuff that I was more thoughtful about, and I tried to just put in personal lessons and like, you know, some guidance, motivation. So it became way more about like what you were saying. Um, and then just kind of like in recent times, it's been like both, where it's like, here's, you know, a truth that may be rough. And what's crazy is like, through there was a time in my life where I was like kind of passive, and I did this to
Mm.
myself on purpose just because I'm trying to experiment with like my personality and whatnot, and trying to change who I was because I saw flaws in my personality and I was dealing with like emotional stuff, so I wanted to change. And when I became more passive and I was just kind of listening and not giving anything or not being ambitious and stuff, the way that my friends kind of transformed around me, it was different. It was like I was like, am I doing them a favor by always being that consistent, soft person in their life because they know that they can come to me for that, but then not make any changes? Um, or is it my job to help them be aware of that, and then be that balance for them, like recognizing that, okay, being this way, they're still gonna continue to just, you know, complain or not make certain changes. But then what if I'm like a little aggressive or more like, you know what, suck it up and this kind of stuff, and you have to learn how to push through it because life isn't easy, and you know what I mean, like finding that
Mm-hmm.
balance as a person for that other person. And just, yeah, so that kind of like showed me the importance of like having that, just as like someone as to help, but then also for myself. So in my personal life, outside of them, I saw how I changed, and there were certain things about me that, the price of choosing to be a little more passive and to kind of take things in and learn how to be more present and stuff was that I lost a lot of qualities that I had that served me. And so I had to learn how to find balance. And when I was able to do that for myself, I started to feel really good about who I was. Um, and so that's translated into how I my relationships to people. You know, if like they're the person that always complains and says I can't, and I'm like, from the jump, I'm really listening on why, and I don't pass any judgment. I don't even give them advice because I'm like, oh, it's too early, like I don't even know what to say, like I don't know who you are, you know, like who am I to really give you anything. And then after kind of knowing them for months and seeing a pattern, I'm like, okay, you kind of do this, and this is what I think is kind of holding you back, and this and that, whatever. And I'm being like, not even going at them, but just listing stuff as a friend. And then they get offended, and I'm like,
Mm.
um, I'm here to, like, I don't understand. Like, is this stuff not true? And then over time, it shows like, okay, like, you know, the stuff you said were true. I just had an ego. And then I'm like I don't know how to, whatever, right? And then just, you know, today, like it's kind of the whole both thing where I
Mm-hmm.
do that personalized, understanding,
Mm-hmm.
empathetic, and then sometimes I toss in a little heat because I
Yeah.
feel like some people are just, when you give them all that and the soft stuff, it just never
It
penetrates.
doesn't. Yeah.
So like I I definitely prefer being on the other side of not being controversial and being extremely more thoughtful. I think it's a great idea, and it's like it's just better, right? And sometimes when I do write things, and I tell my friends and stuff this too, I'm like, sometimes I write stuff. It might not even be a big deal to anybody else, but I'm like, I'll feel uncomfortable because I'm like, to me, this is what's true, or this is how I might be feeling, or this is how a group of people might feel,
Mm-hmm.
and it just resonates with me right now, and I put it out, and it makes me uncomfortable. And
Mm.
it's because I'm like, well, why am I uncomfortable? It's because I'm not necessarily afraid of the truth. I think I'm just afraid of being like judged or disliked for something that I feel like is a real thing.
Yeah.
Um, and in sometimes those posts, and they're kind of like little Instagram things, and sometimes they're not even really like going at anybody. It's just it's so raw, and I try to encourage looking at oneself, um,
Yeah.
and connecting the dots and whatnot. Sometimes I'm nice about it, sometimes I'm not, and I'm just like, I don't know. It's kind of what's coming out of me now.
Okay, can I? Okay, I don't know if you're up for this, but I'll read the post you made, right?
Okay, okay. Let me.
And
I'm gonna pee. Okay.
okay, wait, I'm gonna use the bathroom too. Let's
Okay.
come back.
Okay.
One sec.
That's it's not sucking dick. It's throat training. That's so funny. Porn collection. Did you actually have a porn collection? Sorry, I'm reading comments now for people who are gonna probably watch this re-uploaded. Everyone has power and influence, every parent to their child, every coach to their team. If someone disagrees with your influence, they might be trying to help you increase your worldview, but most likely they want you to align with what they believe. Okay? If you treat someone like they are below you, aren't you teaching them to be submissive and to accept what happens to them? What type of lesson is that? Yes. Yeah, I'm just... I don't know. I don't know. But I think it'll be interesting for him to deconstruct what I said, because that making that post that I made me uncomfortable. But it came from a passionate place and a concerned place. But could it have been where I could already imagine how I could redo it and rewrite it and actually make it sound way less offensive and attacking, but instead have us look at, you know, mental health as an issue for real. Not look at it, but like I could have worded it differently for sure. But I don't know. He's about to come out of my life, and it's great. Everyone is gone. I used to write blogs on there. Pretty intense stuff. Can you guys hear that? Maybe he's pooping. ever play Smash Bros? Yeah, actually, on New Year's, I played Smash with my friends for a little bit, and I suck. You know, when plans don't work out, it sucks. But it's okay. It happens. Anime Boston deleted. But yeah, I think so. I definitely am not that great at the game, to be honest. I have to learn how to be much better, and at least the new one. Um, so far, I know for sure I like Zelda. I've always liked Zelda because of her ability, the deflecting ability, but it's also like you can hit people with it. When you can shoot that like it like you can control the move. I made a video on Smash. Zelda's hype. Yeah, I don't really know anything about that world. I just know that I like playing her. I love her teleportation move. Yeah, her shit's dope. She's fire. And then I don't know who the other person is. I don't know the name, but like my friend was like, "Oh, maybe you like playing this person," and I did. They have like a magic and like a book, and they can do different stuff. And I was like, "Yeah." So I suck at like close combat. It's just really hard, and I mean I play against people who are better than me, and it's so frustrating. Because I try, and I'm just like, damn, they're just too good. Robin, maybe I'm not sure. Yeah, is that character? Yeah, I need to get the game. I mean, I don't play much games, to be honest, just because I'm always trying to on the grind, like, and just enjoying, talking to people and learning, and that's honestly like the grind mixed with all this other marketing stuff that I'm trying to do, build a career and whatnot. So I don't really turn to video games as often, maybe here and there. Yeah, there's like two friends on Twitch that have just been saying stuff.
Oh, hi.
On the grind, yeah.
Let me go find your Twitch. Vattana.
Yeah, it's Vattana _ Thach.
Nice.
Um, yeah, man, that post, I think.
Yeah. Okay,
Even just,
so
oh god, like even looking back and just skimming, I was like, I know I could have written this in a much better way too. Like I know where it wasn't like an emotional, nah, it could have been way better, and I know that. And so that, I think that part of me, like that internal conflict too, of like, I said it like this, and I'm gonna own up to it. I'm just gonna do it. Versus like maybe
yeah.
I should be a little more thoughtful and like, yeah. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The first line I already explained to you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The next line, I go out of my way to help your it.
Oh,
That whole line,
yeah,
it paints you in a light that sounds like you have a savior complex, like you're
oh,
trying to save people.
mm,
And, if you genuinely want to help these people, which I believe you do, and it's your passion,
mm-hmm.
I don't think you should ever say, I go out of my way, because
Okay,
it sounds like you're suffering
yeah,
for these people when, like, they're these adults, parents, aunts, uncles, and stuff, they're not asking you to do that, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It would be different if the purpose of the post was a rant slash like angry, like like I go out of my way to do this shit for you people and you're not even grateful. Like
yeah,
if that is the intention, then fine, that works. But I don't think that it was clear if that was the intention.
yeah,
Another thing is like if your target were these people, I think refraining from profanities is probably a good idea
mm-hmm.
because the moment you put the word like shit and stuff like that in there, it does dilute the
The message.
maturity
Okay.
of the
Yeah.
message,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you say something like everything we do is like ass backwards, or but we prioritize all the wrong shit, like
Mm-hmm.
it, your grandparents aren't gonna take it like, oh yeah, Vattana's saying something worth reading right now, you know?
Mm.
Um, and the points you make, I agree with, and like the things that you're saying is true. I mean, that's why we're having this conversation now. It's
Mm-hmm.
just like the way it's laid out is like you're like, why isn't one's mental well-being, the way that that rhetorical question is phrased sounds like you are blaming specific people and you're blaming the people reading it,
Okay.
versus like maybe a better way to say that is like, um, there are ways to prioritize mental well-being, um, and these are the ways, versus like you're the reason why it's not, you're the reason your children are suffering,
Mm.
like your bad parenting and the nature of who you are is the reason the people that you love are hurting, like
Mm.
that's what it's would be received as, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think when you say things like money and security is always pushed to the forefront, like prefacing it by saying things like, yes, it is true that money and security is important.
Mm.
Like validating their viewpoints and acknowledging what they're saying is true is good.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're getting them on your team. And then you're saying, but I also think it's important to think about health too,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, you know, you're saying things like that.
Yeah.
And then obviously it's good to say things straight to the point, like we sacrifice our health for wealth. Like that is a really good thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
But to say I'm not an idiot, obviously we need money, is doing what I was telling you to do, but not in an efficient way, right? You're
Yeah.
saying it as like yeah, no shit, dude. Like obviously instead you should be saying I agree that we need money
Yeah.
to some level, blah blah. Um, and then for those living in a bubble, like it's another thing. I think you're
Yeah. Yeah.
way of saying, yo, you dumb little shits
Yeah.
who are reading this. You're living in a bubble and everything you know is not right.
Mm.
You know, instead of saying like that, you could say I used to do things like this, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why I understand where you're coming from.
Mm.
Or like it's not your fault that it's not their fault they live in a bubble because of their parents' fault.
Mm.
And so on. It's a generation thing, right? You're trying to break this cycle,
Mm.
but before doing that, you have to acknowledge their shoes. That's why you can say these things,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like a vegan who's always been vegan and born vegan versus a vegan who used to be a heavy meat eater. The meat eaters are going to listen to that person because they understand what it meant for them to crave meat and to love the taste of it. You know
Mm.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you're trying to be relatable before you say, hey, I get why this lifestyle is the way it is and why you like it, but I've also done that, and for me, this works better. And like you're letting them choose, but at the same time, you are planting seeds in their brains, going like, "Oh my God, Vattana used to eat meat too. Like, what would it be like if I tried to eat one vegan a week?" You know what I mean?
Mm.
And then you say the next one, you create a human being who is that's basically saying you're creating a shitty person. Like, and this is your fault. Like,
Yeah.
you're literally blaming specific people because anyone who's targeted
Mm-hmm.
to them, if they are a parent, aunt, uncle, sibling, and grandparent,
Mm-hmm.
it's literally going, wow, Vattana is saying this about me.
Mm.
And then obviously the people who have really great confidence and pride and ego are going to be like, oh, he's not talking about me, whatever, this is fine, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and obviously there are going to be people who are able to see through what you're trying to say and take in what you're trying to say, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
But by the time you go to, some of them turn to drugs, party every weekend, Netflix, and eat shit all day. Like, when it gets to that point,
Yeah, yeah.
people who you are trying to educate are not going to keep reading because it's
Yeah.
going to be like, oh my god, like, he's just swearing in this post. Let me go angry message his mom now and
Mm-hmm.
tell her what he's saying. You know, it's like, if you say it like, some of the kids these days, so you're not saying their kids, you're saying some of the kids these days
Mm.
turn to drugs and they party and they watch Netflix and they're eating unhealthy versus eating shit all day.
Mm-hmm.
The tone of it is already very different.
Mm-hmm.
And then when people come at you, you can be like, okay, well, in my opinion, I didn't feel like I was being targetful and personal in the way I was putting myself. Versus, okay, fine, yeah, I was being controversial, and I was being, like, I think you get what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I do.
Well, like, the rest of it, like, I think you can kind of, like the next one, right? Your weight is, and saying you need to respect people's individuality. Like, the words need, like,
Yeah.
they don't have to do anything. They don't owe you anything, right?
Mm.
But you could invite them to trying to respect people's individuality, and you can invite them to see that maybe their way isn't the right way and it isn't the only
Mm.
right. So you, instead of saying your way isn't the right way, you could say your way isn't the only of parenting a child, like, by giving them the opportunity to see that, okay, Vattana's not attacking me, he's
Mm.
just trying to give me a different viewpoint. Let me see what I can take from this post,
Mm.
right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
when you call out people's pride and ego on a post that's general and not personal, not face to face, it's very hard for people to take it positively.
Yeah.
Like, when you say, whether it's your pride, your ego, lack of, I didn't go to school and look at me, like, there are ways to say it. You can say it like, I understand that there are some things that are harder to digest and blah blah, but it could be your pride and ego getting in the way of you understanding this, and that is an opportunity for them to be like, oh shit, fine, maybe the reason why I'm angry at this because it's true.
Mm.
Versus, it's your pride and it's your ego, that's why you're fucking up your child.
Mm.
You're saying the same thing, but it's in a way where they can figure it out for them, right?
Mm.
And then you gave up a long time ago. The thing, you're telling people who have passed the middle, going like, oh, you've given up, look at you, you're
Mm.
like, do you really want your child to be like
Mm.
obviously to some extent they want their child to be like them.
Mm.
they they teach them these things, right?
Mm.
So you're telling these aunts and uncles that all you are is someone who's given up,
Mm.
and that's why you are like this.
Mm.
Instead, you say, you know, I recognize that you've lived a longer life. You've gone through your own trials and tribulations, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there is always an opportunity to learn,
Mm-hmm.
and like, it could be that you're projecting all of your fears and insecurities on your child.
Mm.
By going like it could, you're letting them go like, fuck, okay, fine, it's true.
Okay.
Versus, oh, Vattana's just angry posting, and you know what I mean? Like, it's received differently, right?
Mm.
And then the PS I'm not angry at anyone does make for the fact that you've just written all this stuff that sounds like you are angry at someone,
Mm.
right? And that doesn't save you from the timing, which is it of the thing that just happened, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, by the way, this isn't about it isn't about anyone.
Mm.
But by saying dear aunts and uncles, you are saying that,
Mm.
and you are also your the PS, which kind of like a it shouldn't have any blame in there,
Mm.
which is I just wish people took more time to listen instead of forcing their opinion down people's throats.
Mm.
Empathy and compassion is really lacking. Like that's not a good way to end the note. It's
Mm.
not like, oh, you've made it this far. I just wish that you were just more.
Mm.
Okay?
Mm.
Versus like I'm not angry at anyone. I'm just sharing my thoughts.
Mm.
And these are the things that I'm learning kind of.
Mm.
And then instead of going empathy and compassion is really lacking, I'm trying to share
Mm.
my insight on what I think empathy and compassion, and then finish, and then that's it. Then it's up to the consumers to take what they want from it and be like, oh, Vattana's doing this thing again, or Vattana is trying to teach me something, and I'm trying to learn.
Mm.
Yeah.
That was cool. In this, I mean, this is not directly tied to that, but just like in these moments too, where I'm never really in a space where people, or I haven't been in a space in a long time where I've had uh, been blessed enough to have opposing views and people voice it. Because like even from my friends would be like, well, I don't agree with everything you say, but no one ever like fully even attempts to deconstruct, and that is what it is. Maybe I don't ask for it, or maybe they're not the kind of person to do that or whatever. So I think for me, I think this is cool, and paying attention to myself while listening to you, just seeing if any like weird feelings arise, you know what I mean? Kind of like the conversation I had with my mom where it's like, oh, I noticed that I'm like so hype and I'm just ready to have this family meeting, whereas like this is just kind of like, okay, I'm not feeling any sort of like internal like I'm dying, but more of like I do accept, and own up to the things, and I'm grateful that I have someone who could do this for me, and then like I can take it, and I'm not like, damn, I should be ashamed of myself, but more so like just going back to being more thoughtful, all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and the whole time and place thing, because I always and this like the time and place thing, what it besides the timing, like I just always think about like the people who are in positions where when you say like Gaga or Beyonce, because I'll think of like a Logic or a Joyner or a Token or a Gary Vee, who are just like completely zero holding back when it comes to any of the stuff that they talk about or make. And then like Gary will
Mm-hmm.
say like how people call him out in the comments and say like, dude, like you're super rude, or like why would I say that to parents, or parents come at him, and it's like, because everything's out of contact. He's like, I want the relationships with the parents to be great, but if you come across a single Instagram post and I'm like, fuck you parents, and then it's like
Yeah, exactly.
so then with being around that kind of information and kind of like absorbing it, it's the whole, at the end of the day, I have to kind of pick and choose my battles, or pick and choose the kind of how I want to be seen. And if I don't want to be seen in the light that you were able to construct, then it's like obviously I'm not gonna map my behavior in that direction. But if I wanted to, where it's like, you know what, I'm cool with the controversy, and I'm cool with being disliked and this and that, and I'm just gonna do it this way, then cool. But yeah, I would say like there's some influence in there going on, where it's like instead of being more thoughtful, it's just more about letting the emotional And I always like I'll say like just more emotional whatever, just kind of be like this is raw and this is real, and I'm just gonna put it out there. When I'm thoughtful,
Mhm.
I go back and I read and I fix and I structure and I answer all
Yeah,
that's and like you'll see more of that actually if you ever check out my blog, you'll
yeah,
see the super thoughtfulness and like
yeah,
it's youthful stuff. I'm like, oh, I'm so proud of this piece. It's so good.
yeah,
Whereas like this piece where it's like I'm not necessarily proud of it. It was just something that I put out because I felt something.
yeah,
But it obviously could have been more just shaped better because I have good intent. And if I'm
yeah.
not, actually helping as much as I want, then I should obviously change up the style.
I
Yeah.
think like I'm just sharing you my
Mm,
trying to influence people,
mm-hmm.
and for me, and the way I use charm to like get people to see what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Honestly, sometimes my charm can be very especially if you're my friend because it means I can sway votes easily,
Mm-hmm.
and I usually get what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Like what movie we're gonna pick, like I know exactly what to say
Yeah.
to get everyone to be like, okay, fine, we'll watch it, you know? Or like it's annoying to be my friend, but at the same time, like it means that there's somebody guiding and leading
Mm-hmm.
things, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So just my own personal experience, like even on my Instagram when I talk about
Mm-hmm.
an attack, instead I make it an invitation
Mm-hmm.
for people to try it, you know? Like
Mm-hmm.
use different methods to win people without hurting them too much.
Yeah.
You let the hurt like be
Oh
self-inflicted.
yeah, I was gonna say that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like kind of like fuck, like I am a shitty person versus Lewis said I'm a shitty person, so I'm a shitty person. Like it's a different impact.
Yeah.
Okay, I actually have a little bit to start and get time.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have any closing things you want to say?
Um,
Or ask me or anything? Sorry, it kind of like flipped and turned into an interview on
no,
you.
I don't care. Like, it's just this is what would have happened anyway, you know? Um, so that was cool and I appreciate it. And I'm probably gonna do, I'm probably for the sake of like just like who I am, I'm gonna do a different variation of that post and just be like super, honest about it.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that was like one of the first thoughts. When you brought up like you're gonna like deconstruct, I was like, I'm probably gonna not even delete the old one, but just
no,
go at it again with like an entirely different tone and have make sure that the intent is more clear. So that was a thought. One of the questions that I was gonna ask you a while ago was I have two, but I'll just ask one and I'll save the other one for another time. Because that would be more of like we're gonna sit and talk and we're just gonna chill and yeah,
yeah.
a session. But this is more. So how did you stumble across being a vegan? Like, what was that whole reason and keeping at it and all that kind of stuff?
For attention. No. um, it probably was influenced by Star and understanding the things that we do as humans, everything else.
Yeah.
Um, you know, if we want to build a civilization here,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to affect the creatures that live here and all of that. And that was also the moment in my life in which I was trying to be a better person in general. And realizing that a lot of the things I do, like like how I believe that the 20-minute satisfaction that I get from this meal is not equivalent to the suffering that this animal has gone through.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was one of the things. It was probably like of 2016,
Mm-hmm.
and one night I had a dream, and in the dream, I forgot what it was. It was something. It told me like, "Yo, you gotta stop eating animals," and I was like, "Well, when I woke up, I was like, yeah, whatever." That was, and then 2 weeks later, my body actually stopped digesting meat properly.
Mm.
And I would eat like meals, and the only thing that would come up, like, I'd get sick and then I'd vomit. The only thing that would come up was the meat.
Mm.
And that was a big, like, oh, that's kind of weird. So I started doing research and stuff, and that's when I realized, like, veganism is a way to live. And
Mm.
I was like, fuck it. So I cold turkey, and I just did it one day. And I know it's a bit of a random, but it was just like, oh yeah, I'm very impulsive. That's if you get to know me. And
Okay.
but my impulsion is thought out.
Okay.
So it's thought out impulsion. Like every tattoo I've gotten was impulse,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought it out.
Mm-hmm.
So going vegan was a thought out impulsion.
Okay.
Whatever, fuck it, let's just do it. But I thought it out. Like I'm not being dumb with my decision.
Mm.
And so far, every impulsion I've ever done has benefited me and been good to me.
Yeah.
So I'm trusting that impulsion
Yeah.
instinct. So yeah, that's why I'm vegan now. And also, like, it feels good. Like,
Yeah.
I remember how I felt. Um, so, like, 4 years ago, I was, well, heavy for my standard, like, my
Yeah.
body. I
Mm-hmm.
used to be, like, 205 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I would eat, like, two large Domino's pizzas, meat lovers, like, one
Yeah.
sitting. Like, that was so good for me.
Yeah.
But I also remembered how I felt after it. Like
Yeah.
every time, right? I would be like, "Fuck, I'm never gonna do that again," and then I would the next week.
Uh.
Um, but now, like when I'm bloated or full, I'm like, "Oh, I feel so full," but it's like, yeah, I ate tofu and some fruits. It's like
Yeah.
it feels good. Like
Yeah.
when I eat till I'm full now, I feel satisfied. I don't feel gross or lethargic or and that just motivates me to stay on this lifestyle because it makes sense for me.
Mm.
Also, I eat a shit ton, so if I ever went back to eating non-vegan, I would just grow like fucking fast. Like people look at me and they're like, and I'm like, dude, I eat a lot. It's just I'm vegan now, so the only thing that's hurting me is broccoli. Like
Oh wow. That's so different. I mean, everyone's story is different. I just
yeah,
feel like it's random. The dream, the whole dream thing. That's like.
yeah. The dream was weird.
Do you like remember
It
it
was
vividly?
um in my head. I remember some kind of Buddha like figure like talking to me and saying that you've done enough harm and you need to stop eating meat
Mm.
and egg and cheese. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, in the dream, I was silent. But when I woke up, I was like, haha, that yeah.
Okay, that's so cool. You consider yourself a spiritual person?
Yes.
Okay, we don't
I
have to.
think,
Okay. No, no, no.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
You can
But
say,
yes,
but yeah, that was like the
I mean,
conversation that, yeah.
we can continue this when we next meet in real life and do another talk.
Yeah,
Um, that's a whole other can of worms.
yeah.
Well, good worms, well, vegan gummy worms, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll talk soon. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're in Boston, so you can visit.
Yeah. Dude, when you said like let's wait, am I supposed to go to Drake it? Like what? And then you were like, uh, well, we were going to meet, but then like initially, and I was like, okay, like let me make sense of what's happening right now. I woke up,
Yeah.
but no, I'm just glad I didn't have to leave my room, honestly.
Yeah, I knew the weather was gonna be bad. Like I pretty much thought like we were gonna meet, but then when I scrolled up, I was like, oh, I said stream. So,
Okay,
but a
yeah,
stream can be done in person or online. So
yeah,
it's just
yeah. That's why it was confusing because I was like, okay, but yeah, we'll talk soon.
yeah, for
Just
sure.
let me know when you're next free and when I'm next free. Oh my God, school's starting on Tuesday, so
Soon, right? Yeah. Okay.
we'll stay connected. Also, I'll DM you my number because
Okay.
Instagram DM,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Or maybe the next time we have a talk too.
Okay. Dope.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. It was a good talk, Vattana. Of
Yeah, for sure. That was fun. Thank you.
course. Thank you too.
All right. Have a good rest of the day.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Wait, is it always weird to end?
To end, yeah, because it's different for everybody. Sometimes they're just like, all right, bye, and then just end it, and then or I'm just like, hey, all right, bye.
Also, no, it's you know why it's weird? It's because we've been talking about like a lot of stuff, and then suddenly it's like, okay, good talk, bye.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
It's like
That, yeah.
it's like, oh, thanks, by the way. Like, just talk games, but like, okay, good talk. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Yeah. I'm used to
Okay,
it.
no.
It's still weird, but I'm a little more used to it. Yeah.
Okay, okay. It's not personal. It's just we have things to do too.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll talk to you soon. Yeah.
Okay, for sure.
Bye.
Bye.
Also, bye to the people listening, if there were people listening.
Yeah, there was. He's someone
Okay.
who checked out your music. He either already was a fan or he was like, "Oh, snap, it's you," or I don't know, but he
Okay.
followed or something.
Okay, I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.